Championship course. It's a tidal river as well, of course, and it's two crews racing side by side, and that will bring in its own particular piece of strategy and tactics too, and that is what is exciting about this race. We are approaching 200 years, but the boat race continues to come up with new and different things, and that's why it endures, and that's why we love it.
And Michael, in the last few years, Cambridge women have won the last 8 races and Cambridge men the last 3 races. Are those winning streaks likely to continue today, or are we going to see them smashed?
Well, I think perhaps that's a question that maybe Charlie and Imogen might know better than me. We have been hearing, and I've been here on the Tideway, as you know, during the week. I've been speaking to a lot of the members of the crews. As far as the women's race is concerned, I think that is going to be the one to watch today. I think that's going to be a real close race. I've been speaking to their president, who is another Paris Olympian, Heidi, and I think Oxford women might overturn recent form here this afternoon. Imogen might disagree with me. As far as the men's race, I mean, Cambridge have been the form team. I mean, some people are saying that Cambridge has been the best, fastest University 8 in the world this year in terms of the other races and the other regattas that they've competed at. So if you were to put me on the spot right now, Oxford women, Cambridge men, but we always say anything can happen, and it usually does in the boat races.
That's why we're here. Now, my favourite stat that I learned about the boat race this week is that more people have climbed Everest that have competed in a boat race, which gives us a sense of just how elite these athletes are. And we are very lucky because we have 2 former boat race champions and former Olympians as well with us here today. We have Imogen Grant, winner of 3 boat races for Cambridge and 2024 Olympic gold medalist, and Charlie Elwes, winner of the boat race for Oxford and also 2024 Olympic gold medalist. Charlie and Imogen, thank you so much for being here today. When you think back to your boat race, I think you both competed in 2022 on the same day. What's your overriding memory of these moments, these hours just before the race when you're getting ready?
They're tense. You start the season in September, usually at Oxford or Cambridge, before even the university term starts, and the next 6 months is all-consuming in terms of balancing your work and also trying to train essentially as an elite athlete while you're a student. So by this point, you hope that every single stone has been turned over, looking for every single possible thing to sharpen you up. And in my experience, it's nerve-wracking, but you're also really calm. It's the day's here. There's nothing more that you can do. You've done all the preparation you can make, and it's just about trying to soak it in on the day.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think my approach to racing when I was doing it is that, you know, you put in all the hard work. Nothing that you do on the day is gonna massively change what happens in the hours before. And my view is that if you go out there and you try your absolute best every single stroke and you don't end up winning, obviously that's hard, it sucks, but there's nothing really more you could have done. And I think what's unique about the road race, as you were saying earlier, is that it is so unique and not that many people have done it. And, you know, whereas you go to the Olympics and you...
Oh, tell a penny, those Olympians, yeah.
Well, you've done so many 2K races before. You know exactly what to expect. You know how to execute. You've drilled it so many times. Whereas, you know, when I did the boat race, in our race, we had one person in the 8 who had done it before. So really, none of us were going into it with any idea what to expect. So you really do have to sort of, you know, yeah, you go at it with this sense of sort of excitement, and the nerves are also there, but yeah, you don't really know what to expect.
And let's not forget, you are rowing on a tidal river, you know, on a very specific day of the year with, you know, quite unpredictable weather conditions. So, as you say, I mean, even if you had 8 people in a boat who'd done it all before, it wouldn't be the same that day to any other day. There's so many eventualities. I'm really interested when I looked at the sort of figures and the timings, and we have it's extraordinary to me. Rowing is such a precise sport, and the level of stats and timings you can dive into and really fall down a rabbit hole with it all. But we do hear a lot about how science and nutrition, as well as training techniques, have changed the performance of athletes in so many other sports, you know, tennis, all sorts of cycling. Is the same true of rowing? Because I know that the winning times in the men's boat race are 2 minutes faster than they were in the early 1900s.
I think it's an interesting one for the boat race because, like you say, there's so much external. So a record is usually only set in the boat race when you've got a really strong incoming tide that can really give you a bit of a boost upstream. If you've had a lot of rain earlier on in the year, you've got an awful lot of stream that you're trying to row against, and so the conditions are slower. That's not to say that your own preparation isn't absolutely vital, and you've always got to be ready for that day when there might be a record conditions. I think almost all of the rowers will be taking their supplements, things like caffeine, to help them wake up, doing their pre-race preparations and everything. Everything's going to be planned down to the minute at this point as a crew, but also individually to get the most out of themselves. And nutrition, I mean, Charlie can probably talk to this a bit more than I can, but rowers eat a lot.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you think about rowing 100 years ago versus now, I think athletes are probably bigger, I would say, especially in the open weight events. Generally, I think people are taller and heavier.
I don't want to be personal, but how tall are you, Charlie?
I'm 2 meters on the dot. So if you ever need to measure
Is that an old money?
Lie me on the floor. Sorry?
What's that in old money?
6'7".
6'7".
Yeah.
Very good.
But the other thing is there's been so much technological advancement over the last kind of 100 years or so. We now, you know, all the materials have changed. You now have biomechanics and telemetry that you can put on the eights or the boats to sort of measure power outputs, how quickly you're moving up and down the slide, how you're applying your power. However, having said that, I do think there's a bit of je ne sais quoi, a bit of magic dust that sometimes, you know, you can't really quantify why a boat has this sort of selection of athletes in it, and they might not be the 8 or 4 or sort of 2 best athletes on paper, but somehow it just flies.
Dynamic. Yeah, absolutely. I was really interested to read that the week before the boat race, the crews all decamped to London for the final preps and stay in a dormitory. There's kind of, you know, like a mini version of Olympic Village. I was reading that one Cambridge athlete ate a full pizza with a sausage on each slice the night before the event, which speaks to how much you guys have to eat. But tell me about that week that these crews will have been through. I understand it's a little bit like with marathons with tapering. You don't really exercise much during that week. So you're in a house all together eating pizzas with sausages on top. It sounds intense.
I mean, we were always told to actually watch what we ate in the last kind of 2-3 weeks leading up to a race, because your training load does come down a lot in order for you to recover from the hard training that you've done in the months before. And it's surprising how quickly you put on weight when you're eating. I mean, for us,
when you're eating 6,000 calories a day?
Well, I think probably up to 8.
Wow.
When we're in our sort of biggest training blocks at altitude, and you know, you're having 5-6 meals a day to try and get those calories on board. And honestly, eating becomes a chore and not that enjoyable, because you're just trying to get enough calories to survive the training, basically.
Yeah, it's not all bad though. Eating lots of food is pretty fun.
It is.
And so in that week, you're sort of basically you're conserving your energy, and I guess at that point it's more of a mental exercise than anything else.
Exactly, and it's all about that preparation. Race week or boat race week is really when everything comes into focus. You come down here in Putney, and you know, almost all of the boat clubs will have bits of light blue or dark blue in the windows, depicting who they support. You'll be approached by strangers. You say, "Oh, are you in the boat? Are you in the blue boat?" Or, you know, "Good luck. I hope it's going to go well." You hear shouts from the bank. You know, strangers. You've no idea, and I think it really emphasises just the history of this race. A lot of the time I think it's a bit of a silly race. It's just 2 universities that have happened to be doing it for so long, and you only really realise how special it is when you understand that people really care. You know, people who rode 50 years ago, 60 years ago, or even more recently. You know, my first boat race was 10 years ago, and still being involved is so important to me, and it's all of that history that really comes to a fore just before the race, just when you're sharpening up.
Well, rowing has a very strong community, and we feel it here today. And I was watching the Cambridge women's crew get out of their van and walk through. It's like rock stars had arrived. It was amazing, like, you know, hitting the stage. It's incredible. Michael, Imogen, Charlie, stick with me for the duration. You're sticking with us for the duration of the show, and please stick with us here, because coming up, we're going to be talking about the atmosphere at the start line, the finish line, and at a pub in Hammersmith. This is Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with the Sunday Times Best Places to Live, sponsored by Lloyds.
Daryl Morris on Times Radio.
Join me, Daryl Morris, for all the day's news, an exclusive first look at tomorrow's front pages.
Obviously, this has really big political ramifications.
A journey into the stories shaping our times.
I think that what happened yesterday was a disaster.
I know I broke the law. Why would I want a pardon?
And the people at the heart of them.
They should have more working class northerners. And I wonder if maybe you might be getting a phone call, Daryl.
Daryl Morris, tonight from 10 on Times Radio.
All right, we've got Simon on the line. Simon, young people, they're just all a bit lazy, aren't they? What do you think?
Welcome to McDonald's.
Can I get 6 minutes, please?
Of course.
Some say young people are work shy, but at McDonald's, we hired 47,000 of them last year.
Very much. So, how's your night?
Yeah. Like George here, who keeps things running during a Friday rush. Resilience, making it happen at McDonald's.
Experience. It's knowing the difference between a good deal and, well, a great deal. That's why right now you can get a £250 gift card when you take out Saga Health Insurance. You get 24/7 GP access whenever you want it, and the freedom to choose your preferred private hospital with your own room should you need it. Search Saga Health Insurance for a quote today. Start a new policy before the 28th of May. New customers over 50 only. Terms and conditions apply.
Listen to Times Radio on your DAB digital radio.
Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with Lloyds, helping first-time buyers open the door to a place of their own.
Good afternoon, it's 19 minutes past 1 here in Putney, and you are listening to Jane Mulkerrins live from the 2026 Oxford-Cambridge boat race. And now you can listen to us live, and you can also watch us live in all of our HD glory on YouTube. Just search Times News on YouTube. Now, my colleagues John Harvey and Patrick Kidd, former Times rowing correspondent and diary editor, are at the start line. John, Patrick, what's the vibe like down there?
It's fantastic, Jane. Yes, we're here at the start. I've been to the boat race as a punter before, but nothing quite matches the excitement and the tension right down here at the start. And as you say, I'm joined by Patrick Kidd, who has covered more than a dozen boat races for the Times. Patrick, tell us about this arena, because this is second to none. There's nothing quite like this in sport, is there?
No, this is extraordinary. We talk about the natural impact of the slope at Lord's, say, or bringing the roof over centre court at Wimbledon. But this has got everything. This has got bends, this has got tides, and this has got waves. And today we are expecting the winds to really pick up, especially by the time of the men's race. We're looking at 16 miles an hour coming from the southwest, which is going to be coming straight into them when they're going around underneath Hammersmith Bridge. It's going to get choppy. They're going to be fighting for the best bit of the stream. We're going to have blade clashes. It could be a really good race. But yes, it's all going to be about three things: Oxford, Cambridge and the Thames. They've been doing it for nearly 200 years, and I don't think they're ready to ease up just yet.
Well, you mentioned the history, and this is one of the things which is so iconic about the event, is it's been going on since 1829, and you brought me right to the start where there are signs of that history right around us, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just standing about 50 yards away from where there is a small 3-foot granite pillar. On it, it says UBR, University Boat Race. That's been there since 1845, which is when they first settled on this P2M, Putney to Mortlake course, as where they would race. Earlier they did it down towards Westminster. It was a different course. But since 1845, they have gone past that stone for 4¼ miles down the same championship course, the Tideway. We have had sinkings. I don't think we'll have a sinking today. We have certainly had swampings, and we have had really brutal gladiatorial action. I can't wait.
And I'm speaking of the epic nature of it. Of course, people may not know that Wordsworth's nephew, Charles, actually was the person who started the entire boat race. So this goes way back. But bringing it right onto today, we've just witnessed the tosses of the men's and women's races. What does that say, set the scene for how that could affect what we're about to witness this afternoon?
Yeah, well, the women have only been on this course actually for 10 years. They used to race at Henley upon Thames, and Cambridge are leading 7-2 on the Tideway. They have gone for the Surrey station, which is the one on the south bank of the Thames that gives you the bigger bend. There were basically 3 bends on this course. The first one and the third one favour the side on the north, the Middlesex side, but there's a big one round the middle. And clearly Cambridge are hoping that they will be able to get their advantage round there. Cling on. In the men's race, this is interesting because Cambridge are highly fancied. Their fixtures results have been really dominant. They are going to be getting the advantage of the first bend on Middlesex after Oxford chose to go for the Surrey station. Cambridge could win this very early on. I'm tempting fate here, but if they get off to a flyer, they have the bend in their advantage. We saw it in the lightweights race yesterday. The Cambridge lightweight men got to a flyer on Middlesex, had clear water, they were ahead, and they could then move across and they dictated the race. Oxford are clearly going to be hoping that they can cling on in there and that they can get the bend in their advantage in the middle of the race when it gets very choppy.
Well, as ever, the start is going to be absolutely crucial in every boat race, both the men's and women's blue boats and the reserves. I cannot wait, Jane. This is like nothing else in sports.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Patrick. Well, let's go halfway down the course. Kate Borsay won our very own Times Radio coin toss. She's at the Blue Anchor pub near Hammersmith Bridge.
Hi Jane, I'm at Hammersmith Bridge. Now this is a crucial halfway point for the race. We're just over 2 miles in. And generally whoever passes under the bridge in the lead, they generally tend to take the race. They have a really strong advantage. Ahead of me, and the rowers will pass from my left and my right. This is the middle bridge, by the way, also crucial. Ahead of me I've got the Surrey bend, and whoever has the advantage coming into that bend, they can basically force their opponents wide and gain even more of a lead. So it's a really exciting point to be at. The crowds are gathering really nicely. Everyone's anticipating, of course, that kickoff at 2:21 for the first race. I'm surrounded by members of the public supping on beer and Pimm's. It's delightful. It feels very lovely, very English at the moment. I'm next to the Blue Anchor pub. They're aiming to serve 9,000 pints today, Jane. So that is how busy they're going to be. Everyone's in a great mood. We're looking forward to it here.
Thanks, Kate. 9,000 pints. People are going to be very well lubricated this afternoon. Now let's head down to the finish line. Nick Ellaby and Tom Noonan are at the finish line in Mortlake.
Good afternoon, Jane. Yeah, still reeling about that piece of pizza with a sausage on each slice. I think I might try that myself tonight. Tom and I are at the Quentin Boat Club, just the other side of Chiswick Bridge, the other side of the finish line. What we'll see at the end of the race is those crews cruising under the bridge, panting, swearing, probably smacking the water and hauling themselves out onto the bank here. What we've also got is quite a large number of St John's ambulance crews. In 2023, when we had a very choppy race with Jasper Parrish, the Cambridge Cox, steering his team to victory, really tough conditions, like it might be today. The Oxford stroke Felix Drinkhall was actually taken to hospital, so some of them may be getting medical checks, and I'll pass you over to Tom to what happens next.
Well, when they come out of the water, then you might get a moment where the crews throw their cocks in the water. That's the moment of celebration if you've won. The presentation goes on just behind us. That's where you get the trophy and you get those sort of winning shots of the crowning moment. And while the atmosphere here at the moment, it's sort of lots of organisation, people rushing around trying to get it ready for the crew's arrival. Slowly you'll see the atmosphere build up, because first the women come in, then you get the women's reserve race, then the men's reserve race. So by the time the men's crews come in, you'll have 6 crews, 3 on each side, who've all rowed their race, hopefully caught their breath a little bit, and then we'll be cheering on the men coming in. So it's going to get louder right towards the end.
Thanks to Nick and to Tom, and we will of course be checking back in with them and with all of our reporters around the course throughout the show this afternoon. Now, in the women's race, which is coming up in just under an hour, Oxford are hoping to end Cambridge's dominance, with the Light Blues having won the last 8 races going back to 2017. So who are the 8 women in the crew hoping to be up for the challenge? Let's hear from their president and Cox.
I'm Heidi Long, the Oxford University Women's President.
My name is Louis Corrigan. I am the cox of the Women's Blue Boat for Oxford this year. So the crew from bow to stroke, or 1 to 8. In the bow seat, I've got Annie Anazakis. This is her 4th boat race with Oxford, and she was last year's president. She was a lightweight athlete at Princeton. She's a very fierce racer, and she absolutely knows what she wants. At the 2 seat, we've got Emily Mullins. Emily used to row at Stanford, but this is her first boat race. Again, another ex-lightweight athlete, and very calm, very collected, and really, really receptive and responsive. And, in the bow pair, setting up the boat, they're doing a really, really great job. At 3, we've got Lily Freusham. This is Lily's 2nd boat race, but she's also done some reserve races. She won with Osiris in 2024. Very, very strong athlete, and she's at the back of what we call a bucket in the boat. Has a lot to give when I ask for it, and can really move the hull when it's called upon.
And then we've got Julieta Kamhort from the USA, who's represented the USA at under-23s. Cara Del Rey in the 5 seat. She's got huge amounts of GB rowing team, national team experience, racing at the World Championships.
Her and Julieta right in the middle of the boat are really laying down quite a lot of power, and I can ask for a lot and I will get a lot. In the 6th seat, we have
Esther Briz Zamorano is from Spain, and she's another Paris Olympian.
And again, a really awesome presence to have in the stern.
Sarah Marshall sits in the 7th seat, and she got 2 gold medals at the University World Championships last year.
Sarah coming up through the college programme to now performing at a really high level. She's done really well at this year's GB trials. She's doing an awesome job in the 7th seat and is possibly one of the loveliest people you'll ever meet as well. Finally, the president in the stroke seat directly opposite me is Heidi Long.
I started rowing about 15 years ago and have been part of the GB national team where won the World Championships in 2022 and then got an Olympic bronze medal in Paris in the women's 8 in 2024.
Heidi is someone I think everyone, both within the club and outside the club, really looks up to. She's a huge inspiration to have on the team. She's done an awesome job as president, and as an athlete really is a phenomenal role model.
And Louis Corrigan, who's in the coxing seat, has huge boat race experience. So coming together, we can learn from so much from each other, from all of these different experiences, and hopefully that just gives us the capacity to unlock something that we haven't found by ourselves, because I definitely think like we are stronger as one unit than any of us are by ourselves.
That's my boat, and nowhere I'd rather be.
That's his boat. That was the women's president for Oxford University's boat club, and Louis Corrigan, the women's cox, talking us through the Oxford squad. Well, coming up, why is rowing a metaphor for politics? My panel, Git O'Harry and Dorothy Byrne, will be here to reveal the answer. But first, here's all the latest news from Stuart Willey.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio.
Jane, thank you. Good afternoon. Iran has reportedly posted a $60,000 reward for the capture of a US pilot whose fighter jet was shot down in the south of the country. Another crew member on the same F-15 aircraft was rescued. It comes as Tehran claims an airstrike has hit its Bushehr nuclear power plant, killing a security guard. The IAEA says there's been no increase in radiation levels. 5 officers responsible for guarding the home of London's mayor have been suspended after a bag of police-issue weapons was found by a member of public outside the property. Sir Sadiq Khan has called the incident very serious. A man and woman are continuing to be questioned on suspicion of murder after a man died in Barnsley. A car hit a pedestrian in the Cudworth area just before 5 o'clock yesterday. The crew of Artemis 2 say they're now closer to the moon than they are to Earth. They've also said they're starting to see features on the lunar surface that can't be viewed from Earth. Here's space journalist Kate Arkless-Gray.
The orbital mechanics of it all is pretty complicated. I'm not sure if they've quite got to the point where they're in the lunar sphere of influence, but that will come very, very shortly. And I can't wait to see them fly around the far side on Monday.
And the Prime Minister has talked about conflicts abroad, pressures at home and uncertainty about the future in his Easter message. Sir Keir Starmer has also said Britain is at its best when it chooses community over division. Don't forget you can set the Times Radio News Briefing as your news service on Alexa.
This is Times Radio.
Amazon offers term time working to their employees, like Anton, who's home to look after his daughters during their holidays.
Hello?
To him, this is the best sound in the world. Actually, maybe that's the best sound of all. Now that's term time working, offered at Amazon. 10 weeks off guaranteed per year. Mix of paid holiday and unpaid time off. Conditions apply.
You're listening to Times Radio, where conversation goes beyond the headlines. When it comes to advertising, is your business showing up in environments where it's taken seriously? Or are you relying on word of mouth alone? Join us at the Times Radio advertising event in May. You'll receive a custom campaign for your business, event-only prices, and free creative designed to reflect the quality of your brand. Register now at newsrsvp.co.uk/radio. Stop relying on word of mouth alone and start being heard.
Happy Meal just got a cosmic boost because the Super Mario Galaxy movie has landed in cinemas and Mario hasn't come alone. There's a whole galaxy for your little ones to discover. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this Happy Meal. Until the 4th of May, from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected book or toy, while stocks last.
You're listening to Times Radio, where conversation goes beyond the headlines. When it comes to advertising, is your business showing up in environments where it's taken seriously? Or are you relying on word of mouth alone? Join us at the Times Radio advertising event in May. You'll receive a custom campaign for your business, event-only prices, and free creative designed to reflect the quality of your brand. Register now at newsrsvp.co.uk/radio. Stop relying on word of mouth alone and start being heard.
Get the day's politics, business and sport every weekday in breakfast from 6:30 a.m.
Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with Lloyds. With a mortgage from Lloyds, first-time buyers could own their own home with only a 5% deposit. Lending subject to status. You could lose your home if you don't keep up your mortgage repayments.
Good afternoon. It's 27 minutes to 2 here on Times Radio, and you are listening to Jane Mulkerrins live from the 2026 Oxford-Cambridge boat race in sunny but ever so slightly windy Putney. In just under an hour, we will be bringing you live coverage of the women's race, and around 3:21, the men's race too. So excitement is building here Riverside, not least among my panel for today, who are perfectly balanced between teams. In the light blue corner, I am delighted to welcome Dorothy Byrne, former head of news and current affairs at Channel 4 and also recent president of Murray Edwards College, Cambridge. And in the dark blue corner, Gitto Harry, former BBC political editor, former Downing Street director of communications, and most importantly for today, rowing enthusiast and Oxford graduate who also now sits on the board of the boat race. A very, very warm welcome to you both. Before we dive in, how confident are you both feeling for your respective teams today?
Oh, well, Cambridge is the best. There's no doubt about it. They always win, and quite right. And of course, I'll be particularly rooting for the wonderful women.
There you go.
Unfortunately, that is an accurate statement of fact over the last few years, though there's always hope. And, you know, they are all exceptional people, and there's only two teams, you know, at a time. So, you know, the odds are pretty good.
And Gitto, how far off rowing for the Blues men were you when you were at Oxford?
You've seen the superhumans surrounding us today. I nearly scraped 6 foot, but that's not remotely tall enough to be for the men. I did row for my college for the first 8, so I took it quite seriously, and I still row now recreationally in a single scull along this very waterway, so I'm very familiar with the course.
Charlie was saying that people are a lot bigger than they were. I mean, wasn't 6 foot? I mean, you were obviously only at university very recently, Gitto, but how tall was the tallest person in the blue boat when you were there?
Oh, I think they were about 6'4",
okay,
you know, round about then. Whereas now I think in the Oxford boat there's 3 guys who are over 6'7".
Yeah.
And they're slim with it, and the really exceptional thing is they're not just the equivalent of Olympic athletes, you know, and can hold their own with any professional full-time athlete. These people are academically brilliant as well. They're top draw. They really are intimidating. And a friend of mine said last year he felt a little short watching the crew announcement. This year he felt thick as well, as he was told what they're all doing.
They're tall and they win every pub quiz coming. I know. It's so. Well, let's start today with a story of enormous relevance to today's historic sporting event. This week, it was revealed that a billionaire hedge fund manager is making the largest single donation to a university in modern times. Chris Rokos, who is one of Britain's richest men, is giving £190 million to the University of Cambridge to create, I mean, it's fair enough he's calling it after himself, the Rokos School of Government. It narrowly eclipses the $185 million donated to Oxford back in 2019 by the American billionaire Stephen Schwarzman, which was at the time described as the biggest donation to a university since the Renaissance, and was used to create the Schwarzman Centre for the Humanities. Now, Dorothy, you were recently president of one of the Cambridge colleges. We've heard a lot recently about philanthropy and how it's completely necessary, really, to keep universities going. How reliant are not just Oxford and Cambridge, but how reliant are, you know, Russell Group universities, all the kind of good universities in this country? How reliant are they on wealthy benefactors?
Well, they are reliant, but the problem with wealthy benefactors is they give to what they want to give to. I mean, this is a brilliant donation, and he gave it to Cambridge because of the great synergy at Cambridge between emerging technologies and political thinking, and he wants to improve governance, and we need to do that because we've had some terrible governments recently. But
you just slightly waved your hand at Gitto when you were saying that, Dorothy.
No,
was that inadvertent?
I was just waving generally. I wasn't making any particular comment about Boris Johnson, who went to Oxford. But the problem is that about 40% of universities in this country are running at a deficit. And great donations don't really help that. And in fact, nearly half of donations in this country go to Oxford and Cambridge, which is wonderful, but other universities need money as well. Yeah. But, you know, you can think that Cambridge has all got lots of money. Murray Edwards College doesn't have loads of money at all. And when I first went there, I thought, the students asked me to help raise money for the boat club. And I thought, what, the elitist boat club? And sent them away from my door, I'm afraid. And then I realised I'd made the most terrible mistake, because the boat club is not elitist. This is a sport enjoyed by all women. I think there was only one woman at our college who had actually rowed at school, and we're a very diverse college. And it's so key to well-being. So I did help them to raise money for a new boat. And, you know, the great thing about rowing is you have to get up early in the morning, so you can't lie about being depressed. You have to eat well, so you can't lie about worrying about what you're eating. It's the best possible form of health.
Yeah, absolutely. Gitto, Rokos is an Oxford graduate donating to Cambridge University. I mean, I don't know if we want to read anything into that particularly today, but
a combination of that and responding to the take. Do you know that every single Prime Minister since the Second World War who went to university went to Oxford, apart from Gordon Brown, who went to Edinburgh? There were a few who didn't go to uni at all. Some of the best, you might say, John Major, Winston Churchill, James Callaghan, but 14 out of 18 of the Prime Ministers since the Second World War all went to Oxford. So Cambridge may win at rowing, but I think the record shows that Boris included, and Rishi Sunak and Theresa May and David Cameron, all them,
Liz Truss,
have actually.
I mean, it's been down for our country since the Second World War.
But as a track record for producing Prime Ministers, Oxford still lies ahead. There's a serious point, of course, about giving money. Most people give money with some strings attached, and you know, sometimes that's a good thing if they insist that it will be spent on a certain sort of form of medical research that will make the world a better place. I admire those people who do that. When people start giving money towards, you know, political thinking, then I think we've got to be a lot more careful, because, you know, if that comes with strings, that it's a certain type of political thinking and that skewers what the next generation of brilliant leaders are taught, that's a bit worrying.
Well, that is a question of sort of ethics and morality. Dorothy, as the president of a college, do you or can you or should you ever say no to donations?
Oh gosh, people say no to donations the whole time. All universities, yes, definitely. You should only say yes to donations which fit within the ethics and morality of your organisation. And at Murray Edwards, we were very clear about that. But what you are saying here, Gitto, says to me that we need our Prime Ministers to come from all universities, not just from Oxford. Their record of running the country is not good. I mean, is Liz Truss's college proud that she became the Prime Minister? I went to Manchester and Sheffield universities. Let's have some Prime Ministers from there.
Well, this is going to start the Rokos School of Government, so, you know, they are hoping to send some, you know, to establish some more leaders. Rokos himself went to Eton on a scholarship, which he said was massively life-changing. And he's also said that he doesn't want the Cambridge School to be populated only by people with centrist, socially liberal views like his, and that he would consider it a failure if this happened. Is there an argument, Gitto, that such a school would be more useful if established at a less elite, more diverse university like Sheffield or Manchester?
I think what I like about what he's doing is we think of the leaders at the top, and I made a cheap point that the leaders at the top have tended to be from Oxford. But
you can make all the cheap points today.
Exactly.
We'll arm wrestle at the end of this hour.
So I'll make a serious point that the way the UK is run is largely down to civil servants, and I think we are very, very poorly equipped at the moment in the people who are at the heart of the government machine at all levels, because, they largely have quite a narrow skill set behind them. They are not harnessing technology as they should. They're not there at the cutting edge of, business practice in the best run companies. And the people who run the UK should be the very best of what's available. There are lots of reasons why they're not. They're paid a fraction of what they would all earn in private industry for a start. But I think to create a school that combines political thinking with, business management, with state-of-the-art technology is sharp.
Well, Helen on the WhatsApp says Oxford PMs, and just look at the state of the nation.
I agree.
You've made that point.
Let's move on to another party which would like to be considered the party of government in the near future. Nigel Farage has sacked Reform UK's housing spokesman for saying that the Grenfell Tower was a tragedy, but that everyone dies in the end. Simon Dudley, who had been in the post for less than a month, added that the pendulum had swung too far the wrong way on regulation after the 2017 blaze, which killed 72 people. We should say that in the last few weeks alone, there have been at least half a dozen Reform candidates and employees, including its press officer in Scotland, 5 prospective MSPs, Reform's London mayoral candidate and a Welsh Senedd candidate, have all been forced to withdraw or to stand down from the forthcoming local election campaign. Well, Robert Jenrick spoke to Rosie Wright on yesterday's Times Radio breakfast.
I don't defend any of the comments that you've just raised, but look, all political parties have bad apples. What really matters is how you respond to them when you discover those people.
Why have you had so many in the last couple of weeks? What's wrong with the vetting process?
There's no evidence that Reform has any greater problem than any of the other political parties.
Does Reform have robust enough vetting policies, do you both think?
Well, I think it goes beyond vetting policies. It clearly doesn't. But I think voters in May need to ask themselves why all these absolutely dreadful people want to be in Reform. And do you want to vote for a party which has to reject even some of its own leading members for some of their dreadful opinions, including racism? People should vote for Reform, if that's what they want to do. But I think they also should and will look at who some of these tricky characters are who have been in the party, and that may well put them off.
Gitto, you've worked on both sides of the sort of political spectrum, both within Downing Street and as a political editor. How can we interpret these polling results, which seem to suggest ongoing popular support, although it may have stagnated, some polls seem to suggest, but also the apparent inability of Reform to actually behave like a party that does mean serious business?
I actually think we have seen the high tide of Reform. We saw it at the Caerphilly by-election, which they thought was in the bag, and it wasn't. And I thought back then that they were destined to win the Welsh Senedd elections, and I no longer do. I think Plaid Cymru have pretty much got in the bag, though they've got to beware of, being too smug about it. I'm slightly torn because, I'm not going to defend any of the people who've had to stand down, but I am anxious about this idea that we should vet people so tightly that we end up with the very people who frustrate us, people with no character, with no history, with no background, and it's for the electorate in the end to decide. So pick the odd row character, put them to the electorate, and let the electorate say no, because what we do see is that I don't think people are blind about what Nigel Farage is like, or what he may have been like at school. We've read a lot about that, and yet he's still quite popular. And where I hesitate, and where I'm slightly different to you, is I don't insult the people who still find that attractive. I think, I don't have to find him attractive, but I cannot dismiss the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people in the UK who want what Reform are offering. We've got to understand why that has happened and how you outmaneuver that, outpersuade it. And I really want in politics for people to play the ball, not the man or the woman, woman. And unfortunately, calling someone a racist or calling them misogynist is the oldest trick in the recent playbook of politics, and it's tedious. And it partly explains the rise of reform, because people think that instead of having the argument, you've tried to shut down the argument from the left.
But some of these people who were thrown out of reform, it's not that I'm saying they're racist. They said absolutely appalling racist things, which I will not even repeat here on a lovely sunny day when we're going to have a nice event, because they're so awful. So it's not me dubbing them racist.
No, but one guy had to stand down because a picture emerged of him holding his finger under his nose and doing a Basil Fawlty impersonation. Now, if you exclude from public life anyone who laughed at Fawlty Towers back in the day and may have tried to imitate the goose step walk or indeed the finger under the nose as the Hitler tash, then what are you ruling out of public life? You know, it's sort of, would Winston Churchill, one of the great prime ministers who did not go to Oxford, indeed, or to any university, would he pass the current sort of sniff test? Because he was prone to being exceptionally rude about women in particular.
Well, I don't think Winston Churchill will be elected now because he's bald. And since TV was introduced, no bald person has ever become Prime Minister.
We did actually discuss this on the show last Saturday. And apparently there are some rising baldies in the cabinet now. So they may prove you wrong. Or we may just see a lot more politicians going to Turkey for a summer break. Who knows, Dorothy?
I should have mentioned, among the Prime Ministers, Keir Starmer also went to Oxford for a postgrad.
Well, they are slugging
he's doing well.
He's certainly not.
They are slugging it out in the light and dark blue corner here, Thames side. We'll have more from Dorothy and Gitto live from the boat race with me shortly. This is Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with the Sunday Times Best Places to Live, sponsored by Lloyds.
Across the UK, on DAB digital radio, on the free Times Radio app, and via your smart speaker.
Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with Lloyds.
Late nights on Times Radio with Times Holidays. Listen to Times Radio every night from 10 for a first take on the stories making the headlines. Plus, explore the wider news agenda with thought-provoking guests from across politics, business, the arts and more. It's your dream nightly destination for the finest mix of news, culture and conversation. Late nights on Times Radio with Times Holidays. Explore, plan and now book the perfect holiday inspired by the journalists you trust. Search Times Holidays.
Download the free Times Radio app and listen to us wherever you are.
McDonald's cards are here. 24 cards to find and free food in every pack. Choose from a range of cards meals, including the legendary Double Big Mac. Order a cards meal and get a pack today. 18 plus UK only, with selected meals subject to availability. Ends 27th of April. App may be required. See mcdrules.co.uk.
AI is only as powerful as the platform it's built into. That's why it's no surprise that more than 85% of the Fortune 500 use the ServiceNow AI platform. While other platforms duct tape tools together, ServiceNow seamlessly unifies people, data, workflows, and AI, connecting every corner of your business. And with AI agents working together autonomously, anyone in any department can focus on the work that matters most. Learn how ServiceNow puts AI to work for people at servicenow.co.uk.
At Amazon, over 50% of deliveries now come with less packaging, or with no added packaging at all. It's a difference you'll notice on your doorstep, where you chat with friends, where your neighbour's daughter practices guitar, and where we deliver your new noise-cancelling headphones in the manufacturer's packaging. Ah, much better. Reduced packaging from Amazon. We're delivering change where it matters, on your doorstep. Based on 2025 Amazon packaging data across the UK and EU.
Experience. It's knowing the difference between a good deal and, well, a great deal. That's why right now you can get a £250 gift card when you take out Saga Health Insurance. You get 24/7 GP access whenever you want it, and the freedom to choose your preferred private hospital with your own room should you need it. Search Saga Health Insurance for a quote today. Start a new policy before the 28th of May. New customers over 50 only. Terms and conditions apply.
The Boat Race, live and exclusively on Times Radio.
Hi, I'm Fergus Pym, the four-seater of the Oxford Boat, and you're listening to The Boat Race exclusively live on Times Radio.
Official radio partner of The Boat Race.
Good afternoon. It is 9 minutes to 2 here on Times Radio, and you're listening to me, Jane Mulkerrins, live from the 2026 Oxford-Cambridge Boat Race. And I am delighted to say I am joined riverside by Dorothy Byrne, former head of news and current affairs at Channel 4 and former head of Murray Edwards College, Cambridge, and Gitto Harry, former BBC political editor, former Downing Street head of communications, and very enthusiastic rower. Now, Tim Davies last week as Director General of the BBC began with the unexplained sacking of DJ Scott Mills, who presented the most popular breakfast show in the country. Not for long, Times Radio is catching you up on Radio 2. By Wednesday, the BBC had admitted it had known about a police investigation into Mills in 2017. Well, Mills made a statement himself saying that an allegation was made against him in 2016, but that he cooperated fully with police, and that case was closed by the police in 2019. The BBC has yet to explain what new evidence, aside from the 7-year-old investigation, which was closed, had come to light that constituted grounds for Scott Mills' dismissal. Now, as a former senior BBC employee and a former head of Channel 4 News and Current Affairs, how do you both view the BBC's handling of this week and over the last 7 years?
I think the BBC, in a recent case with Hugh Edwards, was certainly off the pace, but with this one, it looks like they've, just jumped the gun. Mixing metaphors, but it does look, unless there's something they know that we don't, it feels harsh. And I'm old-fashioned. I still think that we should live in an age where we cherish due process and this old-fashioned assumption that you are innocent until proven guilty. And actually, if you've been investigated and no further things have taken place, then that should be it. There's not a second bite at the cherry. And these days, unfortunately, all you need to do is point a finger at somebody, not to mention launch an investigation, and they are hung, drawn and quartered in terms of public opinion. Now, there may be, as I say, things that I don't know. We may end up thinking the BBC did the right thing. But as things look at the moment, it feels very, very harsh.
Dorothy, according to a source in the Times this week, they said it is typical of the BBC to act slowly on one issue and then to overreact on another. I mean, Scott Mills hasn't been charged with anything. Is there a chance that the BBC might perhaps have overcorrected, in the light of what happened with Hugh Edwards?
We have no idea what's going on here, so I think we would be foolish to posit. What we should look at is that this is the 5th person, male presenter, in a very short period of time working for the BBC, who has either been sacked or forced to resign because of issues to do with their personal conduct. And I'm going to say here, it won't be the last one, because for decades, male presenters were allowed to behave in ways that, well, you're a female presenter now. Can I tell you, Jane, you would not be allowed to behave like that as a woman. And they're not allowed to behave like that now, but lots of things happen in the past, and the BBC's sort of lancing the boil, but we don't know what has gone on here.
So have we seen the end of that sort of culture of presenters being able to behave any way they wanted and get away with it, do you think?
I think don't try it, would be my advice to you.
I'm not planning to, don't worry.
But I think things are much better now, yes. When I started in TV more than 40 years ago, a male presenter made a completely inappropriate sexual approach to me and then bad-mouthed me when I told him where to get off. I don't believe that would happen now, but I think young women and young men who were preyed upon are increasingly feeling empowered and are starting to report about incidents that may have happened even decades ago. So we can expect more of this at the BBC and elsewhere.
Yeah, and just before we finish on this, it's really interesting that the new Director General of the BBC, who starts next month, has come from technology rather than broadcasting. Do you think that will make any difference in the way that the company is run?
Well, we hope he doesn't bring the worst of technology and that he brings the best. But he comes from another world, and I think that's a good thing.
Good thing. Diversity at the top of the BBC.
He's also a rower, of course, who's done this race, and I think that's good for the BBC. Though one of the things about rowing is that you can't see where you're going, and no matter how hard you try, you end up going backwards. But
there it is,
that
the
aside,
rowing is metaphor for politics for you all.
It's a good qualification that he's done this.
I very quickly want to discuss one of my favourite stories of the week with you both, which also feels very appropriate today, as we are broadcasting al fresco. Alessandro Repanesi, the mayor of idyllic lakeside town and tourism his favourite Como, has declared war on alfresco dining and all of its structures, claiming that the sprawl of tables and chairs and the giant plastic ice cream cones was a triumph of chaos. He's also decreed that tablecloths must only be of one colour. Well, he's not the only town in Italy that's declaring war on alfresco dining. Pisa and Florence, Rome and Milan have also introduced very strict measures. Now, I mean, I think it's kind of fair enough, isn't it? I mean, he lives in a really beautiful place and he's the mayor of the town. He's saying that restaurants can only use metal chairs that are painted charcoal grey. How do we feel about this? Tablecloths, should they only be of one colour, Dorothy?
I'm not sure about the tablecloths only being of one colour, but to my surprise, I'm rather with him. Because I think, Lake Como's utterly beautiful and you don't want great big orange and red ice cream cones spoiling it all.
The only orange you want by Lake Como is an Aperol Spritz, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
And though I'm a libertarian at heart, and I don't like the idea that one politician can tell everyone what colours to wear and what tables to have out and all that. I don't like that instinctively. But the part of me that wants to be Italian, the Guido becomes Guido, sono Italiano. I do think that when they have such beauty, which is the defining characteristic of almost everything Italian, then you've got a responsibility to look after it. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, and I do
Consensus
think
at last.
banning, it's sort of the Italian way, isn't it? We're going to, he's stylish, he's smart, uniform beauty is what we want. I think banning benches, stools, small sofas, poofs, bins and decorations. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone erecting a plastic ice cream cone outside my house.
Well, it depends where you live. I mean, I was brought up near Blackpool. It would have looked absolutely fantastic there. But it's horses for courses. What looks great in Blackpool, and I would still urge people to go there, it's a great place, might not work at Lake Como.
No. Do you think alfresco dining's got a bit out of control, Gitta? I mean, what's wrong with sitting inside a restaurant?
I think it's healthy to be out in the great outdoors, and our weather seems to be, getting more conducive to that. It's lovely on the whole. Sometimes, it's a bit too random and it clogs up the streets, but no, I'm a fan in general. And look at the joyous kind of scene in front of us here. So many people in dark blue. It's such a smart colour.
We're going to cut Gitto's microphone any second. Well, hopefully we'll get you an Aperol Spritz before the hour is out. Thank you so much, Dorothy Byrne, former head of news and current affairs at Channel 4 and also recent president of Mary Edwards College, Cambridge, and Gitto Harry, former BBC political editor, Downing Street director of communications, and most importantly, rowing enthusiast, Oxford graduate, now sits on the board of the boat race. Thank you very much for your company this afternoon.
Thank you.
Please stick around, cheer for your teams, and if we don't know who wins, you can arm wrestle it out before the end of the afternoon.
Across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio, official radio partner of the boat race.
Good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock here in Putney and the women's race is almost underway in the 2026 Oxford-Cambridge boat race. But first, here is the latest news with Stuart Willey.
Jane, thank you. Good afternoon. US and Iranian forces are continuing to search for a missing American airman after a warplane was shot down over southern Iran. A pilot who was also on board has been rescued. Iranian authorities are urging civilians to help find the missing airman alive, offering rewards for his capture. Mark Gustafsson of the Eurasia Group was head of the White House Situation Room. He says the course of the war may be about to change.
If the Iranians do have a hostage in custody, it makes it a lot harder to pull away, declare victory, and take an off-ramp, which some people expected President Trump to do in the next couple weeks. And then in terms of additional operations and the offensive plan to continue to strike targets across Iran, the U.S. military is going to be more hesitant.
Prosecutors say a new arrest has been made over an alleged arson attack on community ambulances owned by a Jewish charity in London. It was announced as 3 people appeared before magistrates charged with arson, 2 British nationals aged 19 and 20 and a 17-year-old boy who's a dual British-Pakistani national. 4 ambulances belonging to Hutzala were set on fire outside a synagogue in Golders Green on the 23rd of March. 5 Metropolitan Police officers have been suspended after firearms were left outside the home of London's mayor. The weapons were discovered by a member of the public, prompting an urgent investigation by Scotland Yard. So Sadiq Khan has described it as a very serious incident and says it must never happen again. Policing commentator Danny Shaw says decisive action is needed.
A pregnant woman spotted this black holdall on the street. She sort of gave it a kick and it was very heavy, called her partner. He brought it into the house, opened it up and was absolutely astonished by what he saw. A taser, a handgun and then some ammunition as well.
The head of Iceland, Lord Walker, has called for retail security staff to be allowed to carry truncheons and pepper spray as they can in Spain. Major retailers, including M&S, say police and politicians are failing to tackle what they describe as an epidemic of violent theft. The business journalist Ramzan Kamali told Times Radio it's particularly difficult for smaller shops. He says they lack the resources and staffing to deal with increasingly aggressive and organised theft.
Often they just, if someone is shoplifting, they just have to just put their hands up and let it go. So the smaller retailers don't really have, the security staff that say some of these bigger retailers like M&S and Iceland will have. So they can't really do anything about it.
The Met Office has upgraded a severe weather warning to amber, saying that flying debris could pose a danger of life to some. The warning covers parts of northern England, Scotland and Wales this evening, as Storm Dave brings heavy snow and gale force winds. In football, Manchester City lead Liverpool in their FA Cup quarter-final. Erling Haaland scored twice as City dominated the first half at the Etihad, and a goal from Antoine Semenyo just after half-time. They're now 3-0 up against Liverpool. Hear live commentary over on Talk Sport. And for a news bulletin when you want it, search for the Times Radio News Briefing on any podcast platform.
Across the UK, on DAB digital radio, on the free Times Radio app, and via your smart speaker.
Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with Lloyds.
Good afternoon. It is 3 minutes past 2 here in Putney, and that enormous cheer you can hear behind me is for the Oxford men who are just marching out of their boathouse with their boat aloft. Wow, incredible scenes. We've got a very good spot here right by the boathouse. That is incredible scenes. You are listening to Jane Mulkerrins live from the 2026 Oxford-Cambridge boat race. Well, the Oxford men have just departed their boathouse. The women's crew are on the river preparing for their race, which will kick off around 2:20. And while the rowers might be the stars of the show today, behind the scenes there are some silent heroes who are ready to spring into action in case of disaster today. Each year, the RNLI runs an intricate operation here on the river, bringing a flotilla of small boats from the coast to manage crowds and to monitor those athletes who are pushing their bodies to the limits today. Andy Mayo, RNLI Event Control Manager, is the man in charge of it all. And I'm very safe to say he is joining me now and sitting by my side. So should any disaster befall me, I'm very, very well located. Good afternoon, Andy.
Good afternoon, Jane.
Thanks so much for being here with us. Andy, there's 250,000 people here today, beside a very large body of quite fast-flowing water. It's quite unusual for a sporting event, isn't it, really?
Yes, I mean, and to come onto the Thames is amazing, and we just make sure that the safety of it is in paramount,
Where are you based, Andy?
So we're based up at Chiswick on the Thames, and we patrol from all the way down to Albert Bridge and all the way back up to Richmond. So that's our area of operations. But today it's purely Putney to Chiswick.
Putney to Chiswick. So don't go sailing anywhere else on the river today.
No, I'm sure we'll be fine.
Andy, what are the most common issues that you have to deal with, both on boat race day and just in the course of your work on the river for the RNLI?
So boat race day is looking after the athletes' welfare. Obviously we're following the race, the men's race up and the ladies' race up, so we're always monitoring that. But also we have lifeguard units out with some crews from Chiswick, and we're just looking at prevention, making sure people don't fall into the water, pushing them back with the tide coming in at the moment. With all these races, one year we rescued over 77 people where they were cut off by the tide. So just purely intervention, talking to them, making sure that they don't get cut off, and they're all safe and well.
Just as a warning out there for anyone listening, where were those 77 people standing?
So 28 were around Chiswick 8, the island. So they all came out from the road when it was low water, usual thing. got encouraged watching the boat race, and then all of a sudden when the men's race finished, they turned around and the water had gone. The water was in behind. The rest were at Barnes, so come down the ladders, walk along the foreshore, great, having a lovely time, but not concentrating on what the water's doing.
Well, I mean, let's not forget, this is a very, very heavily tidal river. When I was reading up this week in preparation for the race, I couldn't believe how high the tide is, and that's because it's a spring tide as well, right? And so the race, I gather, the race is held, the women's race is 150 minutes before high tide, and the men's an hour after that. And it is timed perfectly to hit when the water is flowing fastest from the incoming tide. So it's basically at its most dangerous point when the races are kicking off.
Exactly. You know, we go by a guide of in 12 hours, 8 hours the water will go out, and that same amount of body of water will come in under 4. So twice. So you get the kind of the speed, and everything, like you say, it is very dangerous out there.
Yeah, and how many people are part of your operation today in total, making sure that should those people be standing in the wrong bit of Chiswick Eart, that there are people to help them?
Yeah, so we've got, like I say, 2 E-class boats with 4 on each crew, so 8. Following the races up, and then we have 7 lifeguard units with 4 people on board. So we're talking, around 36-40 people. But we've also got water safety guys up and down, fundraisers, as we're a charity, so we've got to keep the money coming in, and they're patrolling around and rattling the buckets as well.
Absolutely. So if you see someone rattling an R&I bucket, give the money for those people standing near Chiswick Eart today.
Yeah.
And in the course of non-boat race days, how do you spend your time up and down this river?
So we're Chiswick and Tower, which are downriver, are the busiest lifeboat stations in the UK.
Wow.
So we're
busier than the coast.
Yeah, busier than the coast. We're over 1,000 shouts a year combined on the Thames, which is amazing. Unfortunately, we do go to a lot of mental health, looking after their welfare, people threatening to jump, unfortunately. But then it changes. We're on the rowing patch, so we've got all the rowing boats and the coxes and the coaches launches. And then you've got the people, dog walkers. Their dog will see a duck, go after the duck. The owner will go in after the dog. The dog will get out 10 yards down the river, and the owner will be half a mile getting swept out. So it's all those kind of things that we have to look after.
And how reliant are you on volunteers for your large events?
Yeah, 100%. We've got at Chiswick, we have 70 volunteers and 10 full-time staff. So those 70 volunteers will do 2 shifts a month of 12-hour shifts. They're giving up all their time, just to help us. Today, like I say, 40 volunteers all coming in on an Easter weekend, giving their time up to be out on the river, looking after the safety of everyone. So, yeah.
Do you need any special qualifications to be a volunteer for the RNLI?
That's the beauty of it. when I first started, I was a mere chef. And I just went down and saw this big lifeboat on the coast being pushed out to sea, and I thought, that looks cool. Looks cool. Joined up. You go to college, you join up, you go to RNLI College down in Poole, they give you all the training, you come on to the stations, they give you more training, and you just build yourself up. So, we've got, masses of people that, have never had any water experience, and the training that we get from RNLI is amazing.
That's incredible. So anyone who's interested, where can they find information to sign up as a volunteer?
Well, definitely I would say just either look online, RNLI, all the links there, or even our local Chiswick RNLI, all the Instagrams, all the usual social media posts.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for being here, Andy,
pleasure.
today, and thank you for keeping 250,000 people safe on the river today. I'll let you go and do your job. Thank you so much. That was Andy Mayo, who is RNLI Event Control Manager here on the Thames. Now, coming up, we are waiting in anticipation for the women's race to begin. But first, a very familiar voice is going to be here with me. This is Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with the Sunday Times Best Places to Live, sponsored by Lloyds.
Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with Lloyds. With a mortgage from Lloyds, first-time buyers could borrow up to 5.5 times their income. Lending subject to status, you could lose your home if you don't keep up your mortgage repayments. Conditions apply.
Right now, a guide dog puppy is taking her very first steps. One day,
She'll help someone with sight loss live a full and independent life.
Find the crossing, Bess. Good girl.
When you sponsor a puppy with guide dogs, you're there for it all. Her wobbly walks, her first harness, a life-changing partnership. It's more than a donation, it's the start of a life-changing story. Search Sponsor a Guide Dog Puppy and be part of a story you'll be proud to share.
Guide dogs.
Young people today, can they really handle responsibility? Or are we just kidding ourselves?
Welcome to McDonald's.
Some think young people can't manage. We disagree. That's why 1 in 3 McDonald's managers are under 25.
Hey, Kira. Hey, Belle. How are you? Right? Yeah, I'm good. It's busy out there, though.
Like Kira from South London. She's 23 and manages a team of 20.
Let's go.
Leadership. Making it happen at McDonald's.
Experience. It's knowing when something is worth waiting for and when it isn't. That's why Saga Health Insurance offers unlimited GP appointments whenever you need them. With a choice of flexible plans, prompt tests and treatment, your health is taken care of. And right now, you'll get a £250 gift card when you take out Saga Health Insurance. Search Saga Health Insurance for a quote today. Start a new policy before the 28th of May. New customers over 50 only. Terms and conditions apply.
Listen to Times Radio on your smart speaker. Just say, play Times Radio.
Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with Lloyds, Britain's #1 direct lender for first-time buyers. Based on total value of lending July to December 2025. To verify, see lloydsbank.com/bank-on-Lloyds.
Good afternoon, this is Jane Mulkerrins here on Times Radio with Sunday Times Best Places to Live, sponsored by Lloyds. Today we are broadcasting live from the Putney Embankment, waiting for the women's race in the 2026 Oxford Boat Race to kick off. That will be in under 10 minutes. Well, as we wait for the women's race to begin, I'm joined by a very familiar voice to Times Radio listeners, my colleague Jane Garvey. Good afternoon.
I'm a woman.
And you're a woman, so therefore you are perfectly placed to talk to me before the women's race begins.
Exactly, yes.
Jane, you have commented on how many people are down here today and how well refreshed some of those people appear to be.
Some are a little on the heading towards the merry side of the country. But, you know, actually, I've been slightly blown away by the sheer... I didn't know so many people came. I've lived in Hammersmith now for 150 years, and I suppose I've been dimly aware of the boat race going on every single April. Never taken a great deal of notice of it. But I have to... I think I'll come again. It's a nice atmosphere.
And you haven't even seen any rowing yet?
I haven't. No, well, I'm not so concerned with. No, I am. I am concerned with the rowing. But it's a sort of very well-heeled middle-class buzz about the place. The faint smell of a barbecue. Lots of people quaffing away.
A lot of Waitrose picnics.
A lot of Waitrose picnics.
Absolutely.
And I am surprised by the sheer number of people my age and older who still cling to their university colours and backstory.
I think that's called loyalty, Jane.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I suppose maybe I'm
allegiance.
Maybe I'm just a bit jealous.
Are you a little bit bitter? Did you apply to any of these universities?
No, I didn't apply. I didn't apply to either of them because, for the very good reason that neither of them would have wanted me. So sometimes in life you have to accept that you have strengths and weaknesses.
Now, Jane, I know you are a sports fan.
Yes.
More people are believed to have climbed Mount Everest than have rowed in the Oxford-Cambridge boat race. I mean, if you were going to take up, you know, extreme mountaineering or elite rowing, which do you think you'd fancy more?
I think, honestly, let's just talk about practicalities. I'd be more of a cox than a rower. I'd probably have to shed a bit of timber. But
telling people what to do and being short.
What to be, and being not very tall. So I think that might be where I would head if I was going to get into rowing. I think it's I have a friend actually who's taken up rowing in what I'll call mature years. She absolutely loves it. She loves the camaraderie. She loves the structure of it, you know, getting up at dawn's crack, whatever the time of year, and heading out there and competing. So I do understand it has a whole shoal of benefits to people at whatever stage of life they are.
Well, I suppose if you're waking up at 5 a.m. anyway, because that happens, you might as well do something with it.
I know,
Get to the river.
It's about being at one with nature, isn't it? In a troubled world, at a difficult time. I can totally see the appeal of rowing.
Yeah, it won't surprise you to learn that when I was at one of these two august institutions,
have you just dropped
I didn't feel remotely tempted to get up at 5 a.m. 6 days a week, train twice a day. I mean, I'm sure that I would have quite enjoyed the physical benefits that it brought, but it was fundamentally incompatible with my university lifestyle.
I did read in the Times today that the male rowers require over 6,000 calories a day, and the women 4,000.
I know.
I mean, I think I'd be challenged even by that, if I'm honest.
Oh, come on.
Well,
that's just quite. I mean, I'd give it a good go.
A couple of Lindor bunnies and a sausage butty, isn't
you
it?
Could eat, You could eat 7 hot cross buns for breakfast year round.
Probably.
It would be great.
I would try.
But no, I mean, it is extraordinary. Charlie Elwes was just saying to us earlier. He said sometimes he was consuming 8,000 calories a day when preparing for the boat race, and he was saying eating becomes a chore at that point. Yeah, but I mean, look at the size of him. He's 6'7".
Yes, well, it's not something I'm. Yeah, okay, 6'7". We'll allow him.
Try and get a picture of you both together today.
No, please don't.
Well, Jane, you are going to stick with us, I think, for the afternoon. Might learn a thing or two.
Well, I will learn a thing or two. And isn't it brilliant that the women's race is now, if not quite centre stage, at least on the same bill as the men's race? And I do think that's something that we shouldn't just ignore. It's actually quite significant. So here's to them, and I wish them all the best.
No, absolutely. And the women's race does actually have kind of brilliant feminist credentials. So the women's race began the same year that we were permitted to vote, Jane, in 1927. So it's 100 years next year.
Well, that's fantastic.
Of both of those things, rowing and voting.
Yes, very similar.
Imagine they gave us all of that. Now, I think we're ready to speak to Kate Borsay at the Blue Anchor pub in Hammersmith. Kate, how has the mood changed over there since we last spoke?
We're by Hammersmith Bridge. It's that crucial halfway point in the course, and actually 80% of the time, whoever's leading at this point will go on to win the race. That's why the crowd now here is about 10, 12 people deep. It's got busier and busier throughout the afternoon. It's busy, it's loud, it's bustling. There are viewing platforms. So I'm stood by the Blue Anchor pub. That's behind me. We've got the Oriel Kensington Rowing Club next door. That's sort of a grassroots rowing club right next to us, raising funds for the club, essential funds, by selling drinks. They've got a rowing competition. There's a rowing machine here, and they've got 3 different categories: men's, women's and seniors. And it's the fastest person to reach 100 metres wins a bottle of fizz. So we've got fundraising, we've got a barbecue going here as well. And some of the punters who I've spoken to already are really split. There are lots of allegiances for Oxford, the dark blues, the light blues of Cambridge as well. No one really wants to call it. We've got this crucial women's race first. And this year, after so much dominance from Cambridge, Oxford look really good for it. So we've got a tantalising competition ahead. The sun's peeking out from behind the clouds whenever it has the opportunity. There's a real buzz down here, Riverside, just by Hammersmith Bridge. We're looking forward to it. All action stations.
Thank you so much, Kate. Now, the women's race is about to get underway. Let's cross to reporter John Harvey and Patrick Kidd, former Times rowing correspondent and diary editor, to give us a quick recap of what's happening at the start line right now.
Hello, Jane. Yes, I'm here with Patrick Kidd, rowing expert, and it is absolutely thronging here at the start. Patrick, just explain to us what's going through the boats' minds, what's happening at the stake boats right now.
So for the last 5 minutes or so, both crews have been on the stake boats just in front of Putney Bridge. They've been trying to clear their minds. They've been trying to relax. They've been contemplating their plans, thinking how fast they're going to go. And basically, there's going to be an explosion of activity as soon as the umpire drops his flag and says, off you go. We are expecting a close race. The last time Oxford won on this tieway course was 2016. They won by 24 lengths. They've not won since. They have got failure after failure behind them, but this year the form suggests they should be the favourites. They are on the Surrey station, which means that they're actually giving they're giving away a bit of an advantage there, but they're going to try and hang tight and come through in the second half of the race when it's going to get very choppy.
And this, of course, is probably Oxford's best chance to win at all today. Could this set the scene? Is there a sort of Ryder Cup style momentum that if they can get a win now, this might help the rest of the afternoon for the Dark Blues?
It may do so. I should correct myself. They're on the Middlesex station. They'll get the benefit for the start. Cambridge's men and Oxford's men went out about 15 minutes ago. They are way down near Battersea. It's very quiet there. No helicopters. They are just getting themselves in the zone. They won't be thinking about the women's race, I'm afraid to say. They may come back, though, and sense that there's been a darker light blue win.
Well, it remains to be seen. The tension is palpable here. The crowds are 20 deep. Back to you, Jane.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Patrick. Well, the women's race is just about to begin. You might be able to hear some helicopters flying overhead. They are following all the action. All the action here is going to be brought to you by Michael Waydock, Imogen Grant and Charlie Aylworth in the commentators box. Over to you three.
Well, it's a contest that in a near 100 years of history continues to hold the fascination and capture the public imagination. This is an event that goes way beyond the rowing enthusiast. London puts on its best on boat race day. The Thames becomes its beating heart. And at the centre, two crews, 18 athletes, 18 exceptional young people about to do battle in what many say is the toughest rowing race on the planet. And the women's race is underway. The umpire, Claire Harvey, releases that flag, and what we will see now on the River Thames is these two crews. For these first minute or so, they will go out like an Olympic regatta. They will be going for 40 strokes a minute. That will then settle down as we get into the race to around about 35 strokes a minute. This start is so important. I was speaking to some of these crews this week. They were saying to me that at the start they just want to switch off once on the water, hone in on the voice of their cocks. And Heidi Long, the president of Oxford, said she just tried to simplify it right down to how her body is connecting with the water. And at the very early stages of this race, I can tell you that over on the far side of the river from us, that is the Middlesex station, it is the Cambridge crew that are just in behind at the moment, and it looks like the Oxford crew, the Dark Blues, who have gone out the quickest in the first 60 seconds of the women's boat race, live and exclusive on Times Radio.
It's a blistering start for Oxford, I think, as they come past our position at the Sailing Club. We're 60 seconds into this race, and I think they've taken a third of a length, and they're really hoping to capitalise on this Middlesex station that they've got here out of the start. The Middlesex bend gives them about half a length advantage in the first third of this race, and they're going to really try and get as much advantage as possible so they can take the water they want later on in this race.
And the athletes, the legs will be burning at the moment. Although this race is 16, 17, 18 minutes long, the start is really like an Olympic final. You go off as if it's a 2K race, which is only 5.5, 6 minutes long. And you really try and sprint to get yourself up in front. And that's what the Oxford boat are doing right now. They are probably half a length up and going into the corner that is their advantage.
So the umpire, Claire Harvey, just warning the Oxford crew. You'll be able to hear that, and that is signalled by a white flag, which is held down to Claire Harvey's right-hand side. She's on a boat that follows these two crews and continues to warn the Oxford crew. And the reason we're getting this warning is the Oxford crew are just beginning to row across towards their compatriots from Cambridge. And on the river, they are passing Craven Cottage now. So they're going in to this first bend on the Middlesex side, to the north of the river. The Middlesex bend is the initial advantage. As Imogen was saying, that will be worth about a quarter, a third of a length. The crew on the Middlesex station need that first bend to play out well for them as they head into the Fulham Strait. And the other interesting thing about Craven Cottage and Fulham Football Club, it's this year got a fan park for the very first time. We've got fans lining the Thames path, and I wonder whether those crews will be able to be aware of just how much noise there is Thames side at the moment, as we are about a length ahead here, Oxford.
Wow, that's a massive move by Oxford. We're just passing Craven Cottage, nearly 3 minutes into this race. This is the pinnacle of this Middlesex advantage early on. Don't count Cambridge out. They did the same thing in 2024 and hung in to row back through, but Oxford has a really aggressive style at this point, and it's going to be bumps push here for Cambridge to try and keep that contact. Once there's clear water between the stern of the Oxford boat and the bow of the Cambridge boat, it's going to be really difficult to get back on terms for this race.
You can see on the screen, what we can see is up the Fulham bend there are thousands of people lining the bank, which we didn't have when we had it, and they'll definitely be able to hear that. I remember going off the start when I did the race, and you are sort of blinded almost by the noise. And the Oxford crew will definitely be feeling that. They'll be feeding off it. So will the Cambridge crew. They'll be trying to get themselves back into the race now. But as we watch it now, the Oxford crew is two lengths up now, which is a huge advantage at this point in the race.
Yeah, it's been a terrific start by this Oxford crew. What they will both be trying to do here, what they will have been trying to do off the start, is they will be trying to look for the stream. Now, that's your sweet spot, if you like, in the middle of this river. It's that narrow, deep channel in the centre of the river. That is where the fastest water is. And what will happen here now is, because of the advantage, the two-length advantage the Oxford crew have, as they go past Craven Cottage, it's Oxford very much in the lead here. 4 minutes into the women's boat race. They may well then be able to come across and cut off this Cambridge crew, and they might then be able to take advantage of the Surrey bends which are coming up.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk and anticipation for this Oxford crew. They've had 8 losses in a row. They last won this race in 2016, a decade ago. And this has been the crew with their president Heidi Long in the stroke seat that have been really desperate to turn the tide here. And as we've hit the milepost, it is Oxford stretching out this lead. We thought this race would be close, but at the moment it looks like it's going Oxford's way.
And I think the next... Oh, we're just getting a warning through. I think the next minute will be very, very important for the Cambridge crew. I think they've got the next advantage around the bend, around the Surrey bend, and that's probably worth a length and a half, something like that, maybe a length. And what you can't see when you're watching the race either in person or on the TV is just quite how bumpy the water is. And what you have when you have a crew rowing in front of you is it amplifies the waves and the bumps that you feel, and it makes it so much harder to row and keep that rhythm in check and hold and do the good rowing that you've trained. And it makes it very, very difficult if you've got a crew in front of you washing you down.
Yeah, both of these crews have quite contrasting styles. Oxford very aggressive off the catch, really surging that boat forward. Cambridge a little bit longer, lower and slower. Maybe a more sustainable style to be rowing, but it's only really going to work if you're still in the race. And at this point, Cambridge are 2 lengths down. There's a length of clear water between these 2 boats as they come past Harrods and start approaching Hammersmith, which is a really crucial part of this race.
Yeah, we have seen it from the Oxford women's team. They are leading the boat race live and exclusive on Times Radio. They have been aggressive this season. They do like to lead from the front. They've had a terrific campaign. They won all 4 pieces against the London Rowing Club. They won against Molesley and Leander, and they won against the Netherlands national team as well. And now they will know that they are approaching Hammersmith Bridge, which the Surrey advantage you would expect should play out here, but they have such a tremendous lead, this Oxford team at the moment, as they go past the Barnes wetlands on the opposite side of the river from Craven Cottage. They will now approach this bend, as we were saying, the Harrods Depository. That means a third of this race is now behind them, and it is the Dark Blues of Oxford who are very much in the lead, very much in the ascendancy.
And as they go under Hammersmith Bridge now, the Oxford rowers will be looking back on the Cambridge rowers, and what they'll be able to do now is really respond to anything that Cambridge does. They'll be able to maybe take 1 or 2% off, conserve a bit of energy, and then deploy that 1 or 2% when they need it, when they can see that Cambridge are maybe putting in a push and trying to come back on them a bit.
Yeah, and I think it's worth remembering in this Oxford boat, there's a lot of rowers in this crew who have lost this race before. Heidi in the stroke seat, Annie in the bow seat, Kyra in the 5 seat. They were all in the blue boat last year, all in a losing crew, and at the moment this is going to feel absolutely incredible for them, being able to look back and see Cambridge in their sights.
So underneath Hammersmith Bridge, where the coxes will generally aim for the second lamppost on the left on the Surrey side, that is where the deepest water is to capitalise on this Surrey bend. Let's take you inside that leading boat now. Oxford, they of course, as we've been saying, have the advantage in this race, live and exclusive on Times Radio. Louis Corrigan is their cox. He's in the stern of the boat, so he is the only one that is facing forward, if you like, in terms of the direction of the way they are travelling as they head towards Mortlake on this championship course, this 6.8 kilometres of the Tideway Thames. Directly in front of Louis Corrigan, facing Louis Corrigan, Heidi Long, the president of the Oxford crew, the Olympic bronze medalist from Paris 2024. Sarah Marshall, who's from Cambridge, but rowing from Oxford. And then you've got the Spanish, also an Olympian, Esther Briz Zamorano, who's studying at St Edmund Hall. Behind her, Kyra Del Rey, who learnt to row at Nottingham Rowing Club, aged just 13, and is now rowing for Oxford University here. Julieta Camahor in the 4 seat, learnt to row in the US, a native of California. And then we've got one of the 2 sisters in this race competing against each other. Lily Frysham in the 3 seat, learnt to row at Edinburgh University. In the 2 seat, Emily Malines from Chicago. And then in the bow seat, Annie Anasakis as well, who started rowing at school in Melbourne. So we are 9 minutes into the boat race, and it is Oxford who have a significant advantage right now on this Cambridge crew behind them.
Yeah, we're just over halfway and we're approaching the Ayot, and this is the bit that everyone has been talking about. The wind direction and the wind speed means that this bit is likely to be rough. Both of these crews have pumps set up on board, ready to pump out the water if it comes into the boat. It's going to be really interesting to see if the coxers make the decision to go for the flatter water down by the side or stay in the faster water of the stream. And it's going to be about which of these crews can deal with this wash the best.
And you can see there Heidi Long in the stroke seat chatting to Louise, the cox. And actually, it looks like Cambridge have actually come back a bit on the Oxford crew in this rough water. And this, as you said, Imogen, this is the part of the race which really counts. A headwind can blow out margins, but it also can make the rowing extremely difficult. And if I describe the water to you now, it's very, very rough. And on the TV, it looks rough, which means that in person, the rowers will really, really be feeling that.
Yeah, they've left behind Hammersmith Bridge. Remember, around 80 to 85% of the boats that lead at Hammersmith, which is just shy of the 2-mile mark, will go on and win this race. And they've left behind the noise and where our colleague Kate Borsay is at the pub, and they now go out onto this wide, blustery stretch of water. The wind and the tide really meet each other here, and that's why the conditions can get choppy. And well, it's significant for Oxford that they've got an advantage, but Cambridge are making a move here as well.
Their cox, the Cambridge cox, has decided to head for the bank. Matt Moran, he's coxed on these waters for a long time, and they have made the decision to leave the stream and seek the shelter of the Surrey bank. They're taking their bend close to the bank, so they've got the flatter water. Oxford at the moment are still making the choice to stay out in the stream and row. It's really difficult to see if this is going to pay off for them, but I think it's a really excellent gamble from Matt, the cox of the Cambridge 8.
Yeah, it's a big gamble, but Cambridge needed to gamble at this point of the race because Oxford had that significant advantage. But as we say, Matt Moran, the cox, the man that launched the hot cross bun challenge amongst his crew, trying to eat 73 different types of hot cross bun, has gone across to that calmer water, experience on this part of the Thames, on the tideway, a member of the Thames Rowing Club when working in London. First witnessed this boat race as a toddler, and he has made now this move over towards this near side to us, the south side of the river. How will it pan out?
And as I was saying earlier, that Oxford crew out in front, they are able to respond to everything that Cambridge does and effectively level out any strategical shift that Cambridge tried to do. And that's what Oxford have done here. They've moved over in front of the Cambridge crew, and they've effectively neutralised that difference, the strategic decision that Cambridge did to move over to the flatter water on the Surrey side.
Yeah, it's a really interesting choice to make as well. Both of these crews are really hugging the Surrey bank now. Neither of them are in the stream at this point. They're choosing the flatter water, but it's Surrey's side, which means this is Cambridge's water. So if Cambridge choose to move out back into the faster water, Oxford are going to have to move as well. The margin has stayed about the same. Oxford are about 2.5 lengths up on Cambridge, and they've still got Cambridge in their sights. It's Oxford's race to lose.
Chiswick Pier just shy of the 3-mile mark. Oxford leading the women's boat race, live and exclusive on Times Radio. They have 2-3 lengths advantage on this Cambridge crew that have made that strategic move in the last few moments as well. Let's take you inside the Cambridge boat now. The light blues, their cox we've mentioned, Matt Moran. Just in front of Matt Moran, facing Aidan Renwaltz in the stroke seat. Mia Frasham, the other sister who rode in the Blondie crew in the reserve race last year in the 7 seat. Camille Vandermeer in the 6, the reigning world champion in the women's Coxless 4. She'll be targeting the Los Angeles Olympics. In the 5 seat, Tony Gallard. And Tony Gallard learnt to row at home in Essen, the German under-23 international. Karis Earl in the 4 seat, combining her rowing career with her medical studies. She told me this week that she once helped deliver a baby at 3 a.m. and was out there training 2 hours later. In the 3 seat, Charlotte Ebor learned to row at Syracuse University, the newest rower in the crew. Izzy Campbell in the 2 seat learned to row in Massachusetts, an undergraduate of the University of California, and in the bow seat in her 3rd boat race, was also in 2 lightweight crews and 2 reserve races. Gemma King, the president of Cambridge University. But it's still Oxford at the moment who are leading the women's boat race.
Yeah, grimaces in the faces of the Oxford boat. It's tough going out there with these conditions, but they are still holding their aggressive rhythm rhythm, keeping that advantage over Cambridge.
Yeah, you can really see on the faces of the rowers just how heavy the stroke is. That headwind will really be making it harder to get that blade through the water, coupled with the chop of the water. The conditions are really quite bad.
Yeah, we described the conditions this week during Tideway Week, which is the week where the crews come down and spend some time on the river, as interesting. That was the word this week. They are certainly proving to be interesting. And now Barnes Bridge looms into view. And after Barnes Bridge, of course, it is very difficult. There's not a lot of time for the crew behind, which on this occasion is Cambridge, to try and get back into this women's boat race. So we will head down to Barnes Bridge, where the river will bend sharply towards the finish, and you'll want to try and take the inside of the bend, but you have to shoot the central span. There's only 10 rolls in the boat race, but that is part of one of them. You have to go through the centre of Barnes Bridge.
And you can actually see now the Cambridge crew look like they're on the Middlesex side, which means that they will almost, if they're going to overtake Oxford and win this race, they're going to have to go all the way around the outside, which is a long way to go.
Yeah, we're passing the bandstand now, just approaching Barnes Bridge. It's bringing us to the last 4 or 5 minutes of this race. Lungs are burning, legs are burning. Oxford still have about 2.5 lengths, and the water is still rough. Both of these crews are going to have to move out into that rough water to get under Barnes Bridge through the central arch, and from there it's a straight sprint to home.
Yeah, very difficult when you're behind in the boat race. You're getting that dirty water, the puddles of dirty water coming down to you, and you're having to row through that as well. We are watching at the moment the two crews moving out towards that central span, as I say, of Barnes Bridge. Barnes Bridge, a railway bridge and a pedestrian bridge, which originally dates back to 1849, and still it's the Oxford crew with 2 or 3 lengths on this Cambridge crew as they will make this turn down towards the finish. And having come through the Chiswick Straits, where it's a little bit quieter in terms of spectators on either side of the river, they will now realise, and they will witness, and they will hear the noise as they head down towards this finish.
I think Cambridge are making a move. I think they are throwing everything at it. They've just come out of Barnes Bridge. There is still white horses. There is water splashing everywhere across the riggers of both of these crews. And the water, the clear water between these two boats, I think is shrinking to just 1 length.
I agree. I think the Cambridge rowers, it becomes very difficult to hear the Oxford crew ahead of you. So I think they're doing a very, very good job to try and close this gap. And the Oxford crew, although it looks to us that they've got 2 boat lengths of clear water, you would think that would be very comfortable. It never feels comfortable when they're in that position.
And Cambridge are making another move here to try and cut this bend as much as they can. They are giving this a real good go. There could be a bit of boat race history if they do have the time. They do have the strength to take over this Oxford crew that have led this race right from the start. But once again, the Cambridge cop Matt Moran has made another one of these gambles. We've seen it already once in this race, and we've seen it again as they try and go around this final bend.
Yeah, it's a big move. I don't know if it's paying off for them. I think the water is flattening out a little bit, and now Cambridge are out of the stream as the water flattens out. Oxford still looking lively, still got their heads up as best as they can, and this clear water margin is now out to 2 lengths. Oxford are leading the women's boat race by 3 lengths as they come into the finish line. This might be their first win in almost a decade.
I know, it does look like the clear water margin between the two boats is gaining. I think it's probably up to 3 lengths now. And the Oxford rowers will know when you're facing the wrong direction and you see the bridge disappear around the corner, they know that that's 2 minutes left. And we're now looking at the last 90 seconds of the race. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for this Cambridge crew, especially now as they're hugging the Middlesex bank on the inside. They're out of the fast water, as you say, Imogen. And I think it'll be very, very difficult for them to come back now.
Well, it was back in 2015 that the women's boat race quite rightly and quite belatedly moved to the Tideway, moved to the championship course. 2015 and 2016, the Thames turned dark blue for Oxford, but since then it's been all Cambridge. They won the COVID race as well in Cambridgeshire in 2021. but after a terrific start in this race, the finish line is now very much in sight. There is a stone at the start and there is a stone at the finish, and then on the Middlesex side there is a coloured post as well which signals the finish line. The cheeks are being puffed out by this Oxford crew now, but they will know that that finish line is not too far away for them. It's going to be the boat race for Oxford this year. They are going to win this race. They are going to take this title live and exclusive on Times Radio.
And the Oxford crew will know. They'll know that they've won this race with 10, 15 seconds to go. You can see they're about to come across the finish line. We're going to see splashes, arms in the air. And 3, 2, 1, and they've won.
And it's Oxford University who win the women's boat race, live and exclusive on Times Radio. They finally put an end to that Cambridge dominance. Huge roars of approval in the crew as the Cambridge line cross now in Mortlake. But for this Oxford crew of Louis Corrigan, Heidi Long, Sarah Marshall, Esther Briz-Zamorano, Cara Del Rey, Julieta Camahor, Lily Freischem, Emily Molines, Annie Anazakis, they are the winners.
Annie Anazakis throws her hands in the air. She has lost time after time and she keeps coming back. She nearly retired, came back for this win. I can't imagine what this means to her.
Yeah, the 4th boat race that she's competed in, and now she can put that word after her name. Annie Anazakis, winner. The likes of Heidi Long, that know what it's like to lose in this race as well, have now put that right. Heidi Long said that she reflected long and hard about the result last year, and whilst it was an interesting race and we saw some interesting tactics from the Cambridge Coxes, it never actually looked in doubt. They had a terrific start and they held that advantage.
Yeah, they really did. It was very impressive from the Oxford boat. There's often talk about losing streaks and winning streaks, and I think they really just put all of that to bed. They really talked about forming a culture that they wanted to be proud of this year, led by Heidi Long in that stroke seat, and I think that was just all about them doing the best race that they could on the day.
Yeah, and I remember speaking to Heidi a few years ago, and I remember her saying that she felt like she was going to Oxford and something was building, and obviously she was right. She picked to go to Oxford. She obviously lost last year, and that gamble has paid off, and they've won the boat race this year.
Yeah, and we'll spare a thought to that Cambridge blue boat there. Valiantly fought through difficult conditions. They've put up a good fight to Oxford, but better crew on the day.
They really did, and I think what almost makes the boat race harder when you do lose is the echoes of the cheers underneath the bridge, which are very much heard by everyone who have both won and lost. So yeah, definitely a thought for the Cambridge crew.
Well, a time of 90 minutes 15.17 seconds is the time for our winning crew. Oxford will hear more from Charlie and from Imogen, and of course we will have the men's race live and exclusive on Times Radio for you very shortly as well. It's a binary contest, the boat race. There is only one winner and there is only one loser, and on this afternoon, in this day, in this boat, it is Oxford that have won the women's boat race. Jane.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Imogen. What a race. What an upset for Cambridge. Oxford winning there for the first time in 9 years, the women's race. Now, they will be celebrating, well, Oxford will be celebrating, Cambridge will be commiserating. At the moment, I can see on my screen, they all just look absolutely shattered. Well, let's cross the finish line where our reporters Nick Ellaby and Tom Noonan are in position.
Hi, Jane. Yeah, the Oxford, you can see the Oxford students actually just on the bank behind me going absolutely wild because the women have ended a decade of Cambridge domination. If I just turn round to the river now, if we just see the victorious crew, Annie Anazakis there in the bow seat, the Australian. It's her 4th boat race, and you can see a huge smile across her face. She was actually stood up as she came through the Chiswick Bridge, and Heidi Long in the stroke. She looks absolutely knackered. She spoke to Times this week about her father, Keith Long, who she lost in the run-up to this race. She'll obviously be thinking about him at the moment. If we just make our way over to the bank. The Oxford crew, the victorious crew, are coming past. Listen to the noise here at Quinton Boat Club. Oxford with their arms raised. Louis Corrigan pointing at some friends and colleagues here on the bank. They will all come to the side of the river in a second. The Cambridge crew already there, looking disconsolate, sat in their boat. But huge celebrations here at Quinton Boat Club at the finish line for Oxford women who end a decade of Cambridge domination. We'll go and speak to some of the athletes in a minute for you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Jane Garvey and Dorothy Byrne, you're still here joining me. Jane, you live a pebble's throw from the river, and this is your first boat race. With a race like that, are you now converted?
Well, that was exciting, wasn't it? I mean, I thought Nick was actually quite polite, describing him as knackered. One or two, as Dorothy has just alerted me to, have vomited. I mean, let's just be honest. But, I mean, what a fantastic illustration, if a vomiting episode can ever be a fantastic illustration, of just how much effort these women have put into that. I mean, that was gargantuan, wasn't it, Dorothy?
Oh.
I know you've lost, and I'm sorry.
I mean, I feel gutted, and if I wasn't on the radio, I might cry.
Right.
But also, it's wonderful for Oxford. After years and years of seeing Cambridge win, and it's a sign you think you're never going to win, but keep going.
Yeah.
But look at what stupendous women they are. Look at physically how strong they are, how healthy they are, how positive they are about their lives. And I think the great thing about this race is that it inspires girls to take up both rowing and sport.
Because I think you're absolutely right, because you've got to be strong. And they are strong. I mean, they are fantastically adept young women in the prime of their lives. Well, possibly not the prime, Dorothy, because that's where you and I are.
Yes, we're in the prime.
Heading.
Early prime.
In their very early prime. But putting everything into it. And you're right, it's a fantastic, just a fantastic illustration of what young women are capable of, and how fantastic to be able to witness it. And with huge crowds either side of the banks of the River Thames today. It's brilliant.
I also really enjoyed just watching Cambridge's incredible effort at a comeback there.
Yeah,
I mean,
they tried.
Cambridge really pulled off quickly from the start and were leading all the way. And Cambridge, I mean, they were really gaining ground, especially, you know, sort of in the last third of that race. I can't imagine what it feels like to be quite a long way behind, but you can't give up. You're giving it everything you've got. You're leaving it all on the river and vomiting, potentially.
Fantastic vomiting.
Some of them left quite a lot in the river.
But they didn't give up. That was what was great. It looked like they didn't have a chance, but they twice really, really tried to come back. And that in itself is a fantastic message. You know, we know that girls are twice as likely as boys when they're 16 to say that they're depressed and anxious. By the first year at university, they're 3 times as likely to say it. But we know that girls who get into sport and young women who get into sport are much less likely to be anxious and depressed. And there could be no better representation than this race for why we need more young women to get engaged in sport.
And it's the camaraderie as well. I mean, I don't know, but I imagine that crew, this moment, this afternoon, will live in their minds for the rest of their lives. It's very possible they'll keep on having reunions well into their 70s and 80s and keep discussing the events of the last 20 minutes or so. And it's never that flame will never be extinguished.
Dare we say that should they marry one day,
good Lord,
those relationships will never be as important to them as being in this crew.
Or the bonding, it's possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
They could also find love on the water. Like one of the Oxford men's crew, Gabriel, his parents both rowed in one of the boat races in the 90s, in the early 90s, and they met each other after the race.
Just a slightly superior gene pool, aren't they? I do feel that.
Can you imagine growing up and not rowing in a household like that?
Just that'd
be a way to rebel, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, take up dominoes.
Never going near an ergometer. Dorothy, you mentioned that you bought a new boat for the college when you were president.
Well, I didn't buy it myself, but
raised some funding. What was the effect of the college having its own boat? Because
they had a boat, but it wasn't. It wasn't so good.
Wasn't seaworthy.
It was river. They
River
row on
worthy.
the river, Jane, not at sea. You know, it wasn't what they deserved. And at first, I thought, why are you asking me to help you get a boat? What does a boat matter? Because I was much more concerned with well-being particularly, and also with academic standards. And then I realized rowing is well-being. It's one and the same. And as I was saying earlier, the rowing club at Murray Edwards was by far the most popular sports club, and because they didn't have this boat, there was actually a waiting list of 60 women.
Can I ask, can you start as a raw beginner?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've got a fact. I'm just going to interject with a fact.
She's got a
I've got a
fact.
fact.
Good.
Heidi Long, president of the Oxford Women, I believe started, I believe I'm right in saying that it is Heidi Long, I'll check my facts, but I believe she started because she got two free drinks at Freshers Week. I believe that's right. I'm going to check that fact, but yes, you can start as a raw beginner, Jane.
The vast majority
Absolutely.
in Murray Edwards Boat Club, the vast majority, it was their first time of doing it.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is not... I had thought before I went to Cambridge, this is some elitist thing, but it's not like that at all.
Because if we're honest, if we look at the school boat clubs on this stretch of the Thames at Putney, it's GDST and beyond, isn't it? It's the highfalutin private schools.
But the young, brilliant, feisty young women at Murray Edwards in our boat club were from all backgrounds.
Oh, that's
very, very diverse and magnificent, may I say, if you should ever want to see a really good college boat crew, Jane.
Yes, well.
And
The
Jane,
only thing you need is a good alarm clock.
Right, and then I'll be down there.
Yeah, up there at 5 a.m.
Yes, thank you, Dorothy, for the invitation.
As you two perhaps are for radio.
We're not, but thank you.
There's a metaphor in there somewhere. We'll find it. We'll find it while we speak to Kate Borsey. Kate Borsey is at the Blue Anchor pub in Hammersmith. Kate, I'm imagining big celebrations there for the Oxford women's team.
There certainly is. As you've been saying, Jane, it's been 9 years since Oxford women had a victory on this boat race. The sun is out. Someone's pumping some music from somewhere, Jane. I feel like, you know, as the drinking progresses, the party atmosphere continues, and we've not even had the men's race yet. I'm actually stood with Sam Harris. She's with the Oriel Kensington Rowing Club. We're just outside there, actually, which is right next to the Blue Anchor, where we've been based today. And you learned to row at Oxford, Sam. Just tell us more.
I did. So I moved to Oxford in 2014 to study a degree there, and I learned to row at Worcester College. As an American, I think you're kind of forced to get into a boat at Oxford University, but absolutely loved it, and I've been so grateful when I moved to London to be able to join Oriel Kensington and get back into a boat again.
There are lots of Americans, of course, across both races, but a really, really superb victory for Oxford today. Tell us how you feel, and maybe a key moment for you during the race.
Sure, it was great to watch. I've watched this for every year since I learned how to row. I used to come down to, Furnival Gardens and sit in the fan zone. It's amazing now to watch it in my own club, but it's been a lot of losses. So to see them win this year is incredible, and watching the start was a huge moment in the race. Taking Cambridge off the start, significant lead by Craven Cottage, I think that is a crucial piece of the race that even seeing that, I thought, okay, we're doing it.
Just explain the rivalry. Is it as strong between the women as it is the men?
I think so. I really do. I think women's rowing's come on a lot in the last few years. Having the race on the Tideway is huge. Even our club, our women's squad is gigantic. So I think they're just as fierce.
There you go. Well, the men's race still to come. We're at Hammersmith Bridge, Riverside. Back to you, Jane.
Thanks so much, Kate. Well, Jane, Dorothy, let's just take a minute just to think about the history of the boat race and how far we've come. So the competition began in 1829 when two men, both called Charles, who both went to Harrow.
Diverse.
That's wonderful.
Who both went to Harrow, challenged each other.
So diverse again.
Charles
Fantastic.
Wordsworth, his uncle was, someone we might have heard of who did a bit with words.
Really?
I'm not even sure Wordsworth was his real name, Jane. I mean, we could look into that.
What was his real name? He really was. He was like the nephew, I think.
Yeah, two men started this boat race, and it wasn't until 1927 that the women got involved. But women did get involved the same year that we got the vote, but progress was held back because it was deemed unladylike.
Well, yes.
And it didn't get to the Thames till 2015. So it's only a decade that we've been rowing the same course as the men. Like all progress with feminism, it's very slow and then quite quick.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? It just seems preposterous that it was only 2015 that they were, quotes, allowed to do the same course.
And I've got a great idea. Right, next year is the 100th of women, so the women's boat race should be second, not first, because it's the second race that's deemed to be more important. So the men should go first next year, and the women should go second to celebrate the 100th year.
My producer Keir is just saying in my ear that the three of us should be in a boat next year. I say make that happen, Times Radio.
I love rowing.
There you go.
Can't you row?
I mean, I'll do a bit of work on the triceps. I'll do a bit of work on the triceps. But Dorothy, if you're up for it, I do anything you say. You know that. I think we are ready to go across to Mortlake at the finish line, where we've got Tom Noonan and Nick Ellaby. What's happening down there, boys?
Hello there, Jane. Yes, we're here at the finish. Just coming over is Kyra Del Rey. Nick.
Kyra, tell me about it.
Well, it's pretty crazy out there. First, 3 minutes was a normal day on the course. And then we got hit by this sea kind of weather. And we just had to keep going, and we knew we were on a good path. And we just kept doing what we've been doing all season, every single day. And then we ended up crossing the line first. So that was great.
That scream told us a lot, but just tell us how it feels to end a decade of Cambridge dominance.
I feel like the scream was enough, That's how it feels. There's no words.
And talk to me about your president, Heidi Long. Incredible.
What a woman. What a woman. I don't know how, that's all I can say.
Just finally, what's the plan now? What's the plan tonight?
Well, we are going to celebrate with the last 99 years of OUBC women, and celebrate with the last 9 years of women who have come before us that have made this win possible, and everyone else in the boat club that we literally couldn't have done it without. So I'm just so excited to be able to share this win with the whole present club and all the historic people.
Kyra, thank you so much for your time. Go and enjoy it. Congratulations. Kyra Del Rey, Oxford University, powerhouse in the 5. And, that's all. I mean, I can't put it any better than that, guys.
Thank you so much, Tom. Well, they definitely sounded like they'd enjoyed themselves, didn't they?
I worry slightly for the venue where they're going to celebrate. Does anybody know where that is?
I thought they were actually remarkably articulate, considering they just rode for 4.25 miles.
The initial response was just a kind of sound.
Well, she said, what a woman. I'd say of all of them, what women.
Yeah.
What a triumph for women that was. It's fantastic.
I sort of feel inspired to perhaps start rowing.
Yes.
I'm not sure
I'll
I can
take
fit
you.
I'm not sure I can fit it in, but let's give it a go.
It's fine. You get up at 5 a.m.
I do that anyway, Dorothy. But I'm into it. Maybe perhaps we could start a Times Radio rowing club?
Yes, perhaps.
Jane was looking at me sceptically there.
Well,
would you like to be the cox?
Yes, I think that's the most likely role for me. But a little bit of work.
Is she Halto champagne here on the riverside?
It's not champagne. It's English sparkling wine.
Good.
Don't tell lies about me, Jane.
But seriously, I mean, it's. I know we're not going to say it's a warm up to the men's race, but what a race to get the juices flowing, for a sporting afternoon.
We're definitely not going to say it's a warm-up. It's the most exciting race of the afternoon. No offence meant to the men. I'm obviously looking forward to seeing them as well, and I hope that they will manage to be as exciting as the women were, but I do also hope Cambridge will win.
Quite right to get that in. Just to give a quick shout out to Sean on the WhatsApp. He says he just tuned in, looked to his left, and there we are. I don't know where you are, Sean, but I'm giving you a wave anyway. Hopefully you can see that. Probably doesn't work so well on the radio. Well, we are waiting with bated breath for the men's race. Dorothy less so, but the rest of us are very excited.
I'm just waiting with breath.
Dorothy's waiting with some breath for the men's race, which will be coming up in the next half an hour. We will have all the live coverage here from our incredible commentary team of Michael and Charlie and Imogen. This is Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with the Sunday Times Best Places to Live, sponsored by Lloyds.
across the UK, on DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio, official radio partner of the boat race.
Good afternoon. It is 3 o'clock here in Putney, and this is Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio, broadcasting live from the 2026 Oxford and Cambridge boat race. But first, let's get a news update from Stuart Willey.
Jane, thank you. Good afternoon. American and Iranian forces are searching for a missing US pilot after an F-15 was shot down over southern Iran. One crew member has been rescued. Iranian security forces are urging citizens to help find the pilot alive and are offering a $60,000 reward for the capture. It comes as Tehran claims an airstrike has hit the Bushehr nuclear power plant, killing a security guard. The International Atomic Energy Agency says there's been no increase in radiation levels. Here, prosecutors say a new arrest has been made over an alleged arson attack on community ambulances owned by a Jewish charity in London. It was announced as 3 people appeared before magistrates charged with arson: 2 British nationals aged 19 and 20 and a 17-year-old boy who's a dual British-Pakistani national. 4 ambulances belonging to Hatsala were set on fire outside a synagogue in Golders Green in March. The reporter Barnaby Papadopoulos is at court.
It was really quite a dramatic moment in court, to be honest, because it was actually the Crown Prosecution Service's prosecutor who told the court that a 4th person had been arrested, in connection, allegedly, to the attack on those 4 ambulances. Not only that, Emma Haraway, the CPS prosecutor, told us that had been made here at Westminster Magistrates Court today.
The Met Office has upgraded a severe weather warning to amber, saying that flying debris could pose a danger to life. The wind warning covers parts of northern England, Scotland and Wales this evening, as Storm Dave brings heavy snow and gale force winds. The 4 astronauts aboard Artemis 2 are soon to wake up for day 4 of their 10-day mission. They're now closer to the moon than the Earth and say they can see features on the lunar surface that are not visible from Earth. Professor Anu Oja, the UK Space Agency's Chief Technology Officer, told Times Radio Britain is critically involved in the mission.
It wouldn't have been able to get to the moon and come back without a European-built service module. And from the United Kingdom perspective, our ground station, so it's receiving data from space, from the spacecraft, at Goonhilly Earth Station in the Lizard Peninsula in Cornwall, is playing an absolutely crucial role. And there are other companies that have got vital roles within the supply chain that's enabled this endeavour to happen.
In sport, Oxford have beaten Cambridge in the women's boat race. It's Oxford's first win on the Thames after 8 consecutive defeats. Here's our commentator, Michael Waddock.
And it's Oxford University who win the women's boat race, live and exclusive on Times Radio. They finally put an end to that Cambridge dominance. Huge roars of approval in the crew as the Cambridge line cross now. But for this Oxford crew, they are the winners.
And an Erling Haaland cat trick has helped Manchester City thrash Liverpool 4-0 and secure a place in the FA Cup semi-finals. Chelsea look to avoid a big upset at home to League One's bottom club, Port Vale, this evening. Remember, the finest writers from the Times preview and review the week's football on the Game podcast.
Across the UK, on DAB digital radio, on the free Times Radio app, and via your smart speaker.
Ayesha Hazarika on Times Radio with Lloyds, helping first-time buyers open the door to a place of their own.
Good afternoon. It is 3 minutes past 3 here in Putney, and you are listening to Jane Mulkerrins on Times Radio with Sunday Times Best Places to Live, sponsored by Lloyds. Thank you for your company this afternoon. We are broadcasting live from the 2026 Oxford-Cambridge boat race, and we are waiting for the men's race to begin, hopefully in just under 20 minutes. But first, let's check back in with our crack commentary team, our Olympic champions, our former boat race champions. Imogen Grant, winner of 3 boat races for Cambridge and a 2024 Olympic gold medalist, and Charlie Elwes, winner of the boat race for Oxford and also a 2024 Olympic gold medalist. Thank you to you both for your commentary during the women's race, which was incredibly exciting. I mean, it did look like Oxford were winning all the way through, but actually Cambridge put up a very solid fight, didn't they?
Yeah, they really did. I think they should be massively proud of what they've achieved. If you look back over the course of this season, right from the start, the Cambridge crew were underdogs, but they never let that get to them. And I think they should be really proud of of how they held on through some really, really tricky conditions. And on the other side, Oxford, I mean, wow, they've lost year after year over the last bit. The question had always been, when is the tide going to turn? Because it's going to turn at some point. And I think they did it in style. That was really impressive, and I'm really happy for them as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you think back to the race itself, from the outside looking in, it never really seemed like Cambridge were sort of in the running, maybe off the start in the first couple of minutes, but Oxford really did a tremendous job in getting out, controlling the race, and then they were able to respond to every single strategic decision that was made when Cambridge decided to go all the way in to the Surrey Bend to try and get out of some of that rougher water. What you're able to do as a crew in front is watch that and then respond accordingly to effectively neutralise any strategic decision that gets made. And so that was really interesting to see.
So Charlie, as a former champion, with the men's race, the women have gone. You probably know who's won. It's probably been communicated to you. You know, as you're preparing for the men's race to start, what's going through the head of the crew at the moment?
I think you say that. I didn't know who had won when I was racing. You become really, really internal in the last couple of hours leading into the race, and so although you might hear maybe a spectator shouting at you and telling you the result, there's no real way that you would find out from a coach or anything. The coxes don't have walkie-talkies. They don't have, the rowers don't have mics. So there's no way that they would find out unless it was a spectator shouting at them from the top of Putney Bridge as you were rowing underneath. But no, you really do become internal. You start really focusing in on your process, what you have to do. You really don't even focus on the other crew that you're racing, because rowing is a non-contact sport. You can't tackle somebody to stop them. You can't, punch them in the face to sort of knock them down as you can in boxing.
We definitely don't encourage it.
Definitely don't encourage it. Whereas in rowing, you are the only one that can really affect what you do. So it's ultimately all on
yourself,
you.
Really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Imogen, as a woman who's been in this position before, at the end of a race like that, I don't think you ever lost though, did you? Were you always in a winning boat?
I always won when I was in the blue boat.
Okay, so you don't know how it feels to be in that Cambridge boat today. But what happens at the end of the race, whether you've won or whether you've lost?
It's a really strange feeling, I think, because you've had all of this build-up for so long and then it's over. For us, celebrating, shouting, hooting, hollering, and what's always amazing at the finish is you spin in, and as you get out the boat, the rest of your teammates are there. The women's blue boat is the first race of the cohort of racers, and your spares and the people that have supported you are there to give you a hug and maybe give you some champagne, and then you get to sit there and watch the rest of the races of the day run in as well.
So do you then turn around pretty quickly and watch the men's races?
Absolutely, yeah. We're one squad and all of the crews and train together, so you know that if one's gone well, and as the women we go first, we know if we've gone well, then hopefully the rest will as well. So the atmosphere just builds and builds at the finish line.
Brilliant. Well, let's go back to the starting line where John Harvey and Patrick Kidd, former Times rowing correspondent and diary editor, are waiting for the men's race to kick off.
Hello, Jane. Yes, we're here in Putney, and you can barely move on the towpath now. It's a real festival atmosphere. There are beers being quaffed, pizzas being scoffed, the music's pumping, and Patrick Kidd, who's with me, can tell us this. I mean, you haven't had your pizza without me. No, well, quite. Patrick, tell us about how the conditions are changing, because it's not long since the women's race, but it's quite different down here, isn't it?
Yes, so this will be at the peak of the Thames. The water's still coming in. It's much higher than it was an hour ago. We'll get one of my favourite bits coming up when the race has started, because as the flotilla goes past, they generate huge wash, and the spectators who are on the slip path in front of us won't realise until they get their feet wet. As you say, the crowds are building. We can see the flags on the boathouses are fluttering quite a bit now. The worst of the wind, or the best, depending what you want, will be on the second half of the race after Hammersmith Bridge, and it's going to be a challenge. But the crews are not yet on the state boats. They're just behind us. They will be calming themselves down towards Battersea Power Station, where it's going to be much quieter than here. They're just going to be going through their thoughts, working out what their plans are for the start, and the cocks will just be basically trying to get the blood pressure down.
Well, you mentioned the flags fluttering. You spotted earlier a Greenland national flag flying, which was lovely to see. And in terms of things to watch out for, am I right to think last year's race there was a delay to the start because of driftwood, which we've already seen some floating down the Thames. So debris can be a problem. I understand one year a fridge actually was a problem. So can you see anything stopping the race getting underway as it should do?
Well, the first race I covered was in 2006, and during the week before, during training, 2 cars that were parked on the slipway were taken up by the Thames and taken off downstream. They were gone by the time of the race. But we have just watched a massive bit of timber go past, about 3 feet long, right in front of us. They will have boats out looking for obstacles like that and try to get them off the Thames. But of course, we've got 4 miles of largely tree-overlooked river here. Bits will fall off, and that's again part of the race. There's a lot of width that you can try and steer around them. It's all trying to predict what you can see, because of course the rowers don't see what's coming. It's the coxes and perhaps most importantly the umpire who can see a big bit of timber and call a stop or not start it on time, perhaps.
Well, that's it. There's a lot of trust involved. And you mentioned the rowers. Just talk us through the crews from your perspective. There's some real pedigree in the boats, isn't there, in the blue boats?
Yeah, it's still the case that the boat race produces very fine rowers. The London 2012 Olympics, now it's quite some time ago, of course, but there were 16 oarsmen who'd been in the boat race. And that we've obviously Imogen Grant, an Olympic champion back at base. In the crew today, we have someone who rowed in Paris for the German 8. He came 4th in that. We have a World Championship rower as well from Australia. But I'm really looking forward to the youngsters. We have 2 19-year-olds, one in each crew, who are very highly tipped. Patrick Wilde, in particular, in the Cambridge crew, in the number 4 seat, he won the World Championship last year in the pair. The last person to do that, or last people to do that for Britain, were Matthew Pinsent and Tim Foster, nearly, 35 years ago.
And that is extraordinary how young they are. I heard an interview with Caris Earle, one of the Cambridge women, who obviously sadly just lost the race from her perspective. But these are students, aren't they? Rowing's not just the only thing that these guys do. She said she could be, as a medical student, in an operating theatre at 3 a.m. and then out on the river at 5 a.m. So what they've undertaken in this race we're about to see, is there any parallel in sport?
Well, they still have to do proper subjects, and the universities are strict on this. There's no sort of getting in on an easy degree. There was one occasion, now about 15 years ago, where one of the Cambridge crew disappeared immediately after the boat race to go and row for Germany and gave up his degree, and Oxford cried foul and said the results should be scrapped. It wasn't, but Cambridge made it very clear they wouldn't be accepting that from their rowers. These are proper students, and as you say, they are up very, very early to go to Ely or to Wallingford to train, and then back to the labs or back to the lecture theatres, trying to get a degree at the end of it.
And sometimes pedigree's not everything, is it? The Cambridge coach Rob Baker was saying that last year Oxford had 3 Olympians in their boat, but of course they came a distant second in the race. So what is it? It's clearly just having one great individual doesn't cut it in an 8.
No, it's all about how you do on the day. The conditions, as we said earlier, really make a big difference here. The winds, the waves, the tide, the bends. It's how you respond when the lactic acid is pumping through your head. Jürgen Grobler, who used to coach the GB8, had this saying that there will come a time in a race when the man with the hammer attacks you and he starts bashing your arms and your legs and the pain is coursing and all you can do is just keep going. There will be a point after Hammersmith, maybe, when it's choppy, the man with the hammer will come for them. And whoever wins this race will hope they've got it won well before then. Cambridge, everyone is expecting to win handsomely. But they have the advantage of the bend to start with, and then they have a big one against them. So, they might get off to a flyer and try and get it done before the man with the hammer arrives.
Well, we shall see. The bookmakers certainly say they will, but we are all so excited, and it is an incredible atmosphere down here at Putney. Jane, back to you.
Thanks so much, John. Thank you, Patrick. And thank you to you all getting in touch on the socials today. Richard on the WhatsApp asks, can I view the boat race? Well, yes, Richard, you can. We are live streaming all of this on YouTube today. Just search Times News and you can see us in high definition. You can even see Ed Vasey in high definition. Whether you want to or not is another matter. Me says, loving hearing the enthusiasm for the boat race. I've always enjoyed dipping in and out over the years, enjoying the good-natured rivalry between the 2 great universities. However, Times Radio has brought the whole atmosphere of the race and the festival attitude to life today. Well, thank you very much. We're certainly feeling the festival atmosphere down here. Holly says, I'm watching the boat race on TV, but listening to Times Radio commentary. Yours is so much better than Channel 4's. Well, full respect to our broadcast partner, Channel 4, but well done over there, Michael, and Charlie and Imogen. Ed Vasey, Oxfordian, has taken off his dark blue hat just to show a little bit of impartiality. Ed Vasey, did you ever row at Oxford? Were you ever tempted to row at Oxford?
No, I spent a few days wondering if I should be a cox.
You're not short enough to be a cox.
I'm short enough, but I'm too fat.
Were you fat at university?
I've been fat all my life.
You're not fat. You could be.
Middle-aged people do take up rowing. I mean, it is a reminder when you come down here how many rowing clubs exist along the Thames. And I certainly know a few middle-aged friends who've taken up rowing as a form of exercise, and they get down to their rowing club at 6 in the morning and take a boat out and row up and down the Thames.
You have to be quite disciplined, don't you?
You have to be disciplined, but that's what's so attractive to the middle-aged mind.
Yeah.
About getting their life back on track.
And probably about community as well.
Well, not if you're rowing sculling on your own. But yes, I can imagine being
sculling solo with other people.
Of a club. But the atmosphere is amazing. So I probably came and watched a boat race maybe 30, 35 years ago. I've always lived in West London, quite near the river, either in Chiswick or Shepherd's Bush. But I hadn't appreciated coming down here. I mean, it took me ages to get here from the tube station because it is absolutely rammed. I mean, the crowds are 10 deep. It is a festive atmosphere, as you were saying, from the text from Times Radio listeners that you're reading out. I mean, it is probably, yesterday people said 250,000 people would turn up. It doesn't surprise me that is the number, because it certainly looks like it from where we're sitting. It's absolutely wonderful. And the other thing I love about it, we were talking about it earlier on Times Radio, is that it's a sort of apex event. It's about rowing is an important sport in the UK. We do well in the Olympics. There are lots of rowing clubs, not just here on the Thames in London, but further down in my constituency. I represented Wallingford when I was an MP. That had great rowing clubs as well. The river is sort of part of our life, and it's a good way of kind of bringing that to life once a year.
Yeah. As a former Minister for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, was there an effort for rowing, to be kind of given more of an oomph in this country? Because we have done really, really well in rowing over the last, recent Olympics, haven't we?
Well, rowing did very well from the new strategy that the government developed, I think, after the Sydney Olympics, or maybe just before, which was to say, let's take the money from Sport England and the other sports bodies all around the country, and let's focus it on the winners, which is a very unusual thing for British governments to do. But they focused on the winners, and they said, where are we actually going to win medals? Cycling, rowing, those kind of sports, and not funnel the money to sports where we're also ranks. And that has paid dividends, because obviously we've got a huge tradition dating back to people like Steve Redgrave and so on of winning medals at Olympic events, and that's paid absolute dividends. In fact, it's always a shock if we don't do that well in the Olympics in rowing. So I think there were dividends. It was down to the arm's length bodies. They weren't controlled directly by Department of Culture, Media and Sport to implement that strategy. I think they've done it very well, actually, not to be snarky or cynical for once in my life. I think they have done very well in focusing the limited resources compared to other countries in giving Britain, the UK, Team GB as we must learn to call it, bang for its buck.
And more people, Ed, I mean, this is a very elite sport. So, I mean, as you were saying, rowing is, a very popular sport in this country, but so few people are good enough to get into one of these 4 boats that we've seen racing today. More people, I did tell you this fact earlier this morning, more people are believed to have climbed Mount Everest than have rowed in the Oxford-Cambridge boat race. If you were to do one of the 2 events, which do you think you'd do better at?
What, Everest or rowing?
Everest or the Oxford-Cambridge boat race?
Oh, I think climbing Everest. Climbing Everest is now like sort of, I don't know, walking to the top of Munro. They practically sort of guide you there. I mean, I read the other day that some of the Sherpas apparently put baking soda in your food so that you get ill and they can helicopter you down in some insurance scam. But it's so easy now, in theory, to climb Everest, a lot easier than it was 70 years ago. But it's amazing to think how few people have rowed in the boat race. It's 171 years old. I was privileged enough to know a man who's sadly no longer with us, called Bruce Philp. He was the elder brother of my childhood best friend, and he was the first person to row in both boats. He was a doctor, and I think he did his master, one undergraduate degree at Cambridge, one a master's degree at Oxford, or the other way round. And so I remember feeling a swell of pride, though I barely knew him, in seeing this guy that I'd sort of grown up with in a way row in both boats.
I think that would be very difficult, though. Like, where would your allegiance lie? Who would you leave your money to at the end of your life?
Well, it's like being a footballer, isn't it? You know, you play for Chelsea and then you play for Man U, and your allegiance is whoever you're playing for.
I don't think so.
Whoever he was rowing for was where his allegiance lay.
I think the atmosphere today would tell you it runs a lot deeper than that. It's very much not like football teams at all. Come on. I mean, would you leave anything to Cambridge?
No.
Exactly.
Weren't you at Cambridge?
I was, but I'm wearing yellow today because...
Have you mentioned this on the programme yet?
No, this is the first time.
Really? Does nobody know that you're at Cambridge?
No.
Does nobody know that you just had the master of your college on the show?
She's called the president.
Oh, the president.
Yeah, it's gender neutral because I went to a very modern college. But thank you, Ed, for letting that secret slip out.
I think know this.
We were keeping it under wraps because I'm very impartial.
Was it going to be a big reveal?
No, not at all. Ed Vasey, in spite of your inability to keep secrets, you are going to stick around for a little while. Richard on the WhatsApp says he's found us on YouTube and he's watching us from his home in St James, Barbados. Well, thank you for that, Richard. It's not quite 32 degrees here, but it's 17.4 the clock's telling me, which, to be honest, isn't bad, and it hasn't rained, so I'll take it. I will take it. Now, Ed, you are sticking with me, but we've got about 2 minutes to go before the men's race, so it's time to hand over to our fantastic commentary team. Michael Waydock, Imogen Grant, Charlie Elwes in the commentators box. It's over to the three of you.
Well, one wonders what Charles Wordsworth of Christ Church College, Oxford, and Charles Merivale of St John's College, Cambridge would think of this, their big idea nearly 2 centuries later. This is London's Party by the River. 200,000 spectators focusing in now on 18 remarkable young men with 4¼ miles between them and their place in history. And there's plenty of history in this iconic event. And let's turn another page. Let's write another chapter. It's the Boat Race 2026, live and exclusive on Times Radio. And away to our right-hand side, in front of the Grade 2 listed Putney Bridge, we have our 2 crews at the moment. They are attached to their stake boats. So the stake boats are there in the middle of the River Thames. They are anchored, they're moored, if you like, to the bottom of the river, and they will be keeping the 2 boats on that start line at the moment. We've got a slight delay to the start because we have our coxes at the moment with their hands in the air. So I can tell you the Oxford cox, which is Tobias Bernard, who's also their president, and we've got 2 French coxes actually in this race this year, so a little bit of history there. Tobias Bernard's mother is French, has dual British-French nationality, has the hand in the air. The light blues at Cambridge, their cox is Sami Hudegi, and also with a hand in the air at the moment. So we do have a little bit of a delay to the start of this men's race. The women's race, if you were with us earlier on Times Radio, won by Oxford, but the umpire is hoping now to get the 2 of them together. The red flag is up and down, and Kieran Hayes, who makes his own piece of history as our umpire in the men's race, the first Irishman to umpire the race, sends those 2 crews on their way. And once again, you're going to get this high-octane, frenetic, pacey, energetic start to the boat race here. And it's the light blues of Cambridge in the very early stages of this. The first 20 seconds, they'll be up to 40 strokes a minute before they settle down to their stroke rate when they get into the race of around about 35. They are there now trying to look to find that fast-flowing stream, that perfect line from the start where the water moves and they try and get into that line. And it is Cambridge in the first minute or so of this game, this race, who are just up at the moment, 1/4 length up, but warnings to the Oxford crew who are just rowing across at the minute. Their oars are very close together and the umpire has a bit of work to do here.
It's just a canvas lead to Cambridge as they come past our commentary position, and the umpire is already being kept busy, warning Oxford. Both crews are blade tip to blade tip, as Tobias Bernard has been warned 3-4 times now as he steers into Cambridge's water. Cambridge want to take this bend wide, pushing Oxford into the slack on the outside of the bend.
And this is why you have the blue boat and the ISIS boat or the second boat that practices all year long for these moments, because it's distracting when you're an athlete and your blade is 1 foot from the opposition's blade, and you have to stay focused, stay in your rhythm, focus on your process and what you're doing, and it can be difficult with another boat inches from your blade.
Yeah, side-by-side racing. This is different from maybe the rowing you might have watched at the Olympics or the Paralympics, where you are in your lanes with 6 crews. This is side-by-side racing on the tideway as these 2 crews approach Craven Cottage, the home of Fulham Football Club, on the Middlesex side. So the crew on that Middlesex side worth about a third of a length for the Cambridge crew. So they have the advantage at the moment. They've had the faster start as well. The crew on that Middlesex station, they will head now out towards that Fulham Straight as well, and the mile post on the Surrey side after Craven Cottage before they reach the Harrods Depository. We're live and exclusive with the boat races on Times Radio, coming past Craven Cottage, and it is the light blues of Cambridge who were the bookies' red-hot favourites who have taken the early lead.
And as we saw with the women's boat, or with the women's race, with Oxford moving ahead, we can see that the Cambridge crew in the men's race are doing exactly the same thing. They've moved out to a very similar margin that we had in the women's race, and if they continue at this speed for the next 1-2 minutes, I think they'll have clear water. And again, the blades are getting extremely close. I can see that they're probably half a foot apart at the moment, which is so exciting.
Yeah, the umpires being kept busy here, and Oxford are throwing everything at it in the early stages of this race to stay on terms. They're about line astern at the moment, so there's still overlap of about 3 seats, and the umpire shouting, "Move to Surrey." Tobias Bernard, the cox of the Oxford boat, has done this in every fixture so far. He's an aggressive cox and knows it's the best way to keep his crew in the race at this point.
And this is really when the athletes, 3 minutes in, this is really when you have to transition from the lactate phase of the race, which is when your legs will be screaming at you, into a more aerobic phase, which will get you through the next 10-12 minutes.
There's a grimace on the face of Imogen Groff.
There's been a clash at the moment. This is a really dangerous position for Oxford, as they're being warned at the moment constantly by the umpire, Kieran Hayes. Both crews are really pushing the limits here, and what's really important to note at this point is the bow person of the Oxford boat. Their blade is clashing with the stroke person of the Cambridge boat, and if they interfere smashing blades together, that can really interfere with the rhythm of the Cambridge crew. So it's about the bows of that boat, the people in the Cambridge boat have the clear water, the clear run to drive them out of this clash and really take the advantage to send that dirty water down to the Oxford blue boat.
Yeah, they are so close at the minute. Oxford are there with their bow oarsman Felix Crabtree, the 24-year-old who rowed at Durham Union at school in Stratford-upon-Avon before that. And then in that stroke seat, the Cambridge University stroke seat, Freddie Breyer, the 24-year-old who represented Germany at the Paris 2024 Olympics. Freddie and Felix there will be seeing each other out of their peripheral vision at the moment, as we are up to the mile post with Cambridge just under a length in the lead.
I think the Oxford boat, what they'll be doing now is, I think they'll probably know that Cambridge are favourites to win, and they'll be trying to force a mistake. And if you're in the Cambridge boat, I think what you ought to be doing now is putting in 20 of your biggest strokes that you've done in your entire life to try and get ahead and try and get out of the clash, because that's when people catch crabs, that's when you bring your boat to a halt when you make a mistake, and so they'll be trying to get out of this blade clashing tussle.
Yeah, smooth rowing from the Cambridge boat at the moment. They're staying really calm under this pressure from the Oxford crew. These boats are so close. I cannot describe how close it is from the bow blade onto the stern canvas of the Cambridge boat, and same the stroke blade onto the bows of the of the Oxford boat. Any tiny twitch of the steering rudder could mean a really big collision at this point, and it's the vital point for Cambridge to break away.
Yeah, all eyes at the moment on the coxes in the Oxford boat. That is Tobias Bernard, their president as well, and Sami Hudegi in that Cambridge boat. If you hear us using words like Middlesex and Surrey. What we are referring to there is the Middlesex station and the Surrey station. The Middlesex station is the north of London, if you like, the north side of the river. The Surrey station is the south side of the river. And at the moment, on that north side, it is the Cambridge crew, a length ahead of this Oxford crew. As we come up towards Hammersmith Bridge now, you can certainly hear the noise. The rowers will be aware of the atmosphere inside the boats. They will hear all the people, all the spectators, the estimated 200,000 out in Hammersmith, including our own Kate Borsay, of course, who's there at the Blue Anchor. And remember that statistic, 80 to 85% of the boats that lead at Hammersmith Bridge, just shy of the 2-mile mark in this boat race, live and exclusive on Times Radio, will go on to win the race. And it is Cambridge at the moment who now have some clear water between them and Oxford in behind.
And this will be an interesting part of the race, because although Cambridge now have probably a length or half a length of clear water, they are being warned by the umpire. And they have gone around the corner where the tide and the wind are going in opposite directions, and that really kicks up the chop. And that can also throw spanners into the works. People can catch crabs, make mistakes, and so it'll be interesting to see how the two crews deal with it over the next 5 minutes.
This race certainly isn't over yet, and we're on the Surrey Bend at this point as well, which is in Oxford's advantage. The umpires consistently warning Cambridge they cannot take Oxford water at this point until they are a length ahead of clear water and moving away. That's why the umpire keeps warning them. Cambridge really want to be able to take that water so they have the choice of the line as we come round to the A at past halfway, so that they can deal with the rough water how they like.
And they go past St Paul's School as well. I wonder whether Patrick Wilde, the youngest person in this race, will be looking at the age of 18. Maybe he won't have the opportunity to see St Paul's School, but that is where he grew up, that is where he was educated. They call him the kid, but they say he has a rowing IQ beyond his years. We're 8 minutes into this boat race, taking that Surrey Bend now, and it is that Cambridge crew that have a length or so advantage in the men's boat race here, and it is Oxford who are just tucking in behind as they will now make that turn. They'll go past, they have gone past the Hammersmith Fan Park and the Furnival Gardens and the Chiswick Eye there, that small unpopulated island, and they go out into this wider expanse of the river, and as we were saying, the conditions there will get choppy, and still the umpire here, Kieran Hayes, has work to do, and he's warning these crews again.
Yeah, you can see now they've really hit the rough water. Water's being flicked up by the blades. The riggers that come out the side of the boat are also clashing the water as well, and they'll probably have pumps on board, which they'll be thinking about turning on now. And as Imogen said earlier, I don't think this race is over. I know that, Imogen, you came back from a length down to win the boat race. And so I think you're right. I don't think this race is over.
Yeah, you can. There's still looks coming from the cox of the Cambridge boat, Sammy Hudegi. He still wants to know exactly where that Oxford boat is, because it's still that dangerous territory at the moment. We're rounding, coming alongside the Chiswick Eye, which is where we know this water is going to be the roughest. And Cambridge want to have that choice of that line. They want to be able to take shelter if they need to out of the roughest portion of the water.
Well, we talked, didn't we, about hot cross buns in the women's race. Let's talk bagels in the men's race. Sammy Hudegi, his parents run the Brooklyn Bagel Shop in Arlington, Virginia. Let's take you inside the boat then. Sammy Hudegi is the cox, so sits in the stern of this boat, this leading Cambridge boat at the moment. In the stroke seat, which will be the rower just facing Sammy Hudegi, is Freddie Brewer, the 24-year-old, the German who we mentioned rowed at the Olympics. In the 7th seat, William Klipstein represented the US at the Under-23 World Championships. A walk-on to the team, a crucial bridge between the stroke seat, who set the rhythm. Lexi McLean, Alexander McLean in the 6th seat, and then Gabriella Vosa, who rowed as a teenager at Emmanuel School and then at Harvard University. His father, Rupert, won this boat race. His mother was in it too back in 1991. He's one of 2 British rowers in the 5th seat. The other British rower we mentioned is Patrick Wilde, the 18-year-old. Kyle Fram in 3, Noah Moeli, the president, the Parisian, in 2, and Simon Hatcher in the bow seat, who sits there for Cambridge Uni.
And we've just seen a big panoramic shot. We were focused on the Cambridge 8, watching their very long, relaxed rowing style, and they look like they're tackling these conditions a bit better than the Oxford crew. But we just saw a panoramic shot, if I describe it to you, and they've definitely pulled out a bigger margin than the Oxford crew. They've probably pulled out to 2 to 3 lengths now, and this could be a situation where the headwind really blows out the margin between the two crews, which is usually what a big headwind will do.
Yeah, it's a similar situation to the women's boat race that we saw just an hour earlier. There's not been any massive moves, there's not been any huge changes in this margin, but it's just been slowly extending over the course of the race. Cambridge are now out to about 2.5 lengths, 3 lengths advantage over Oxford as they're in the rougher water. There's waves breaking over the riggers, there's grimaces on their faces, and they've still got almost half of this race left to go.
Yeah, we're 11 minutes in. It's the boat race, the men's boat race, live and exclusive on Times Radio, and it's Cambridge at the moment who are in the lead past the Chiswick Steps, one of those famous landmarks on this tideway course, is 4.25 miles. The Cambridge crew were the definite informed crew heading into this race. They had back-to-back overall wins at the head of the Charles Regatta. They demolished Oxford Brooks and Leander as well, and they really do have strength in depth as well, Cambridge. They've got under 23s and internationals in their Goldie crew. They've been unbeaten, they've not lost all season. We wondered whether the pressure of the expectation might affect them, but it doesn't seem to be at the moment.
And as with the women's race, Cambridge now will be able to take 1 or 2% off and store that in the bank and deploy it if they need it, if there's a strategical decision made by the Oxford crew to maybe go into the bank, get some of the calmer water. But it's definitely Cambridge's race to lose now.
Yeah, we're slowly approaching the bandstand, which will signal the final quarter of this race, and it does look like Cambridge are heading into the bank just a little bit to cut the corner, get a little bit of that calmer water there. Simon Hatcher in the bow seat though, looking really calm. They're stepping up really well over these waves, and these are big waves. These are not conditions that most rowers would even think about going for an outing in, a gentle paddle, let alone racing full tilt for 20 whole minutes.
Yep, after that bandstand that Imogen mentioned, the houses at Barnes come into view, and Barnes Bridge as well. And we should say thank you to the voice of the boat race very much in the 1990s and the early noughties, who gave me a masterclass in how to try and do this job, Barry Davis, who lives in Barnes and is listening to our coverage on Times Radio this afternoon and was part of our coverage as well. They're heading towards the railway bridge, the Barnes Bridge, and we know that when you get to Barnes Bridge, if you're the trailing crew, time and course of river is beginning to run out for you, and it's still very much Cambridge now, 2-3 lengths up as they go past on that right-hand side, the playing fields and some of the AstroTurf football pitches as well that we get to see from some of the cameras, the helicopter cameras above us at the minute. And it is the Cambridge crew just trying to cut this corner, as we've been saying.
And interestingly, when you get to this level of rowing, what the Cambridge guys will be thinking in that boat is that people never give up. In the Oxford crew, you're able to push yourself even when you're down, and they will not be giving up at any point during this race. And so the Cambridge crew, although they are now 2 lengths up, they will still be feeling the pressure. It never feels comfortable. From having been in this situation, there's never any level of comfort until you're maybe 15 seconds from the finish line, and they've got another 5-6 minutes left. And it's definitely not comfortable.
The race is never over until you cross the finish line, and when you're in that boat as well, those margins feel much smaller than they look, and it's still really rough. I think we're in still the roughest part of the water, and as we approach Barnes Bridge, they have to move out into that rough. The tide has come in since the women's race, and the river is really full. There's a lot of water bouncing around there.
And the reason they have to move in, as Imogen says, is they have to go through the middle part of Barnes Bridge. They have to shoot that central span, and above them is a coat of arms on Barnes Bridge, which includes a light blue and a dark blue oar. They used to sell tickets to spectators to watch, but health and safety and the high vises have got in the way now as they go underneath Barnes Bridge. It's very much Cambridge's race at the moment. We'll just take you inside the Oxford boat that chased them down, because we mentioned the Cambridge crew, but Tobias Bernard is the cop in the stern of that Oxford boat. In the stroke seat facing him will be Harry Geffen, who won gold at the World Under-23 Championships for the last 4 years. Into that rhythm section and the 7th seat, Alexander Sullivan. Alex Sullivan, who watched the boat race on TV growing up in Australia. Jamie Arnold in the 6th seat. Alex Underwood in the 5th seat, who rode in the reserve boat in 2024. The second youngest in the race, the other undergraduate, is Fergus Pym in the 4th seat. James Fetter, the piano player from the US, in the 3 seat. Julian Scherbel in the 2 seat, the Austrian international, and in the bow for the Oxford University crew. Trying to chase this Cambridge crew down is Felix Crabtree, who studies at Hertford College. College. He's studying clinical neuroscience, but it doesn't look as though it will be Oxford's boat race in 2026. It's still very much Cambridge in the ascendancy here as we are heading in towards the final stages. There's some debris in the river, but fortunately both crews have managed to avoid that.
Yeah, all heads are up, all 16 of the rowers in these boats and the two coxers, none of them have given up. They're both rowing exceptionally well, keeping that rate high as we're getting into the slightly nicer water around the final bend. Cambridge are cutting this bend, staying very close to the bank, whereas Oxford is having that gamble of trying to see if they can find a little bit more stream in the centre of the river. At the moment, it looks like the margin is too big for Oxford to overcome it.
And this is when the Cambridge crew will start to know that they probably will win this race. This is when they'll go from the burning sensation, the pain that they get from an 18, 19-minute race, and the adrenaline of winning. The fact that they know they're going to cross the finish line first will start coming into their heads, and that will power them on to the finish line.
Yeah, the Cambridge cox Sami Udegi will see in his sights now as they make that final turn. Chiswick Bridge, built by the Cleveland Bridge Company from Darlington. That signals the finish line is just ahead of that bridge, and that signals the end potentially of this race. There's grimaces on the face, the lungs will be burning, the legs will be aching, the trucks will be going through fresh hell right now as we're 17 minutes into the boat race, and we'll see that finish line just over there on the right-hand side of the river. That is the Middlesex side of the river, and the stone that sits on the south side of the river, on the Surrey side of the river. That for these two crews signals the finish. That is whether you are going to be the victor or the vanquished, and it looks like it will be Cambridge University in this men's boat race that will be the victors this time around. They are stroking 2, 3, 4 lengths clear of this Oxford crew now. They will see as well, just in front of Chiswick Bridge, a bunch of spectators, thousands of them, part of the 200,000 that are out here on the Thames to support these two crews. They are cheering them home past the ship's pub now. They will deserve their pint of whatever they have tonight. It's Cambridge that win the men's boat race. Cambridge are the champions.
Yeah, shouts in the crew as Oxford cross the finish line, 3, maybe 4 lengths back. Coached by Rob Baker, Cambridge extend their winning streak in the men's boat race.
And as they go out of the bridge now, as we saw with the women's boat race, the cheers of the crew that won echo around, and it becomes very, very difficult for the trailing crew to sort of acknowledge what's happened, and it's real commiserations to the Oxford crew. They put up a very good fight, and we're just listening to the umpire now, seeing whether there's any objections from what happened at the start of the race with the clashing. It doesn't look like there are. Sometimes there are, and there'll be an investigation, but I think it was a pretty clean race all the way through.
Yeah, clean race, rough water, great outcome.
17:56.84 I think was the time, but it's not about times necessarily in the boat race. It's about getting across the line first. We've said it before and we'll say it again, a binary race. There's no prizes for runners-up, there's no silver medals in the boat race. You win or you lose, and on this occasion in the men's race, Cambridge have, as we expected, I think we have to say, they have won this one.
Though not by maybe the bigger margin as we expected. There are 5 under-23 world champions that did not make this men's blue boat for Cambridge, and they were really talked about as really hot shots. So it's a massive asset for Oxford to have kept that margin to what it was. Actually, I was expecting it to be larger.
Yeah, I think you always underestimate how much being the underdog and knowing that you're the underdog drives you on, and it really boosts your level, because you know you've got more ground to cover than the other crew maybe, and so that's a real motivation factor. I always found that wherever I had been training, whether I had been winning, losing, it was definitely much harder to hold on to a winning streak than it was a losing streak, because you're just that much more motivated to go and beat the incumbent.
Well, the boat race is live and exclusive for the very first time on Times Radio. Have brought us drama, have brought us action, and have brought us excitement. And as far as the results, well, everybody is happy because we have an Oxford winner in the women's boat race, but it's Cambridge that have won the men's race. Jane.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Imogen. That was fantastic commentary on a very exciting race. As you said, it's 1-1 because that is 4 in a row for Cambridge men. Let's go to the finish line, where Tom Noonan and Nick Ellaby will surely be watching some epic celebrations from the Cambridge supporters.
Afternoon, Jane. Yes, we're here at the finish. Much happier light blue supporters, it must be said. The crew's just coming in behind us now. A dominant win for Cambridge in the end, but my God, they were made to work for it. Coming in, as you've been hearing, to this race, they've been the dominant crew basically all season, from the head of the Charles right at the start of the season in October. Cambridge have been the team to beat. They're touted as one of the best university crews in the world, let alone out of Oxford and Cambridge. Oxford gave them a really good race, though, stayed right in touch up to Hammersmith Bridge, and even beyond that they were pushing them. Cambridge being warned to get across because there was a chance for Oxford to push through, and Cambridge had to work really, really hard in those conditions. There were various oohs and ahs here when we were watching on the screen, seeing Cambridge's blades being caught in the water, big splashes coming out of the water. That caused a bit of drama here. Even then, Cambridge pushed through, and then from coming past Chiswick 8 down to Barnes, it looked like they were in control. I think Oxford, while you'd be disappointed with the result, will be pleased to have stayed in touch quite as long as that. On the Cambridge side, for a lot of them, they're international rowers, a lot of experience on that front, but they've now got the win in the boat race to pin on their lapel, to put the trophy in their cabinet. For the likes of Noah Mwele, the president in the 2 seat for Cambridge, he's now a 4-time boat race winner. Simon Hatcher behind him in bow, he's also now a multi-boat race winner. They'll be very pleased. We'll hopefully get a chat with them in a second as they just come in. Lots of splash in the water. Cox is going in the water soon as well. We'll try and catch a word with them when we can.
Thank you so much, Tom. We'll definitely come back to you for the Cox in the water. Absolutely. Thank you, Ian VT, who's got in touch on the WhatsApp saying, watching and listening from Burlington, Vermont. Cox, the women's first 13 for St Anne's in first 8, 13, 8. It's 8, isn't it? For St Anne's in 1997. So much fun to recommend rowing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening in to Times Radio this afternoon. Ed Vasey still joins me. Well, that was an exciting one, wasn't it, Ed?
It was great, wasn't it? Although I have to say that Cambridge
Cambridge
were the favourites. Oxford held on, I thought, quite a long time. I thought there might be a race in it, but halfway through I think it was pretty clear that Cambridge was going to win. And obviously when you pull a length ahead and you can see the crew behind you, the boat behind you, you can then kind of run the race. You know when to push and when not to push. So, but it was exciting. And again, I just come back to this kind of crazy atmosphere. It's just wonderful. I really genuinely, I live in Shepherd's Bush. I grew up in Chiswick. I went to school in Barnes. This is my manor, if you like. But I had no idea until today, coming down here, just what a kind of great kind of street party the boat race is for London. I think it's really wonderful.
It's incredible. If only you had your own balcony all the time to come and enjoy looking over the Thames there.
Jobs of a ringside seat at the start of the race overlooking the River Thames. It's really brilliant. It's amazing.
So there were many, it's a very international race today. There are sportsmen in the boats from Australia, from Canada, I think from Germany, from France, from America. What does it mean for universities like Oxford and Cambridge, but also other universities in the UK, to be able to get these international elite athletes to the universities? What is it? It's incredible for our universities that we've got this level of talent. Olympians, future Olympians, former Olympians in our boats here.
Well, it's amazing. It's a huge question, that, actually, because it covers so many kind of complex subjects. Because, of course, traditionally American universities are the ones that recruit people who are great at sports. So if you're a British student who happens to be fantastic at soccer or rowing, and I know some of them who've gone over, they get kind of scholarships to go to American universities. Because interestingly, university sport in America, as I'm sure lots of listeners know, is so much bigger. College football is huge, and they recruit like professional sports clubs to do that. Whereas our universities don't necessarily have that tradition. But of course, our universities are international. Oxford and Cambridge are among the top 10 universities in the world, alongside other great universities like Imperial and so on. So we have this huge international pool of students, which is politically controversial now, because of course people debate about immigration. But it is a good point, I think, to make that not only does the Oxford and Cambridge boat race highlight the importance, the presence of rowing in terms of being central to British sporting success, but also it reflects the international nature of universities. As far as I'm concerned, long may that continue.
And it's incredibly inspirational for anyone who might be thinking about applying to any university, you know, that has a great rowing team, just to be here today watching a free event. It's free here at the Thames, watching incredible rowing. I mean, if I was 16, 17 watching this, I might think, you know, I might get on the ergo machine and think about applying to a university that, you know, offered me a little bit of this. I mean, look at these celebrations going on. We're watching them on the screen, the celebrations that are going on at the finish line, and, you know, people are really part of something.
Well, I think it's you again asked a really interesting question, which is, dare I say, as I was walking here, a lot of the rowing clubs that I walked past were, you know, Harrow, Dulwich College, King's College. What unites them all? They're all private schools, pretty well funded. And you asked earlier about, you know, what we did at DCMS to support British rowing, and I put it in the context of Olympic sport. But there's an interesting question, because perhaps there is a kind of reverse snobbery view of rowing, that it's a posh person's sport. But maybe the government could think, when they see something like this, which is also, by the way, a huge soft power thing for the UK, because not just the boat race crews, but the people watching the boat race will be from all over the world. Maybe support for state schools, and there are state schools that do row, should be something that maybe the government could hold its nose and say, well, actually, maybe this is something we could put money behind to really open it up for people from all walks of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I did go to a state school that it was near a river, but it was the most polluted river in Europe at the time, so you probably wouldn't have wanted to row on that.
We can wrap up cleaning rivers into the whole thing.
We could get all water on it, but Ed, stay with me. We're going to cross to Kate Borsay, who is still soaking up the atmosphere in the Blue Anchor pub in Hammersmith. Kate, what sort of celebrations are going on down there? Are the light blues having their moment now at the Blue Anchor?
Jane, it's hard to tell, if I'm completely honest with you. I have a light blue with me who is very much having her moment. Julia Bihovets, who's with me. She learnt to row at Cambridge. She's also a cox as well. She's here to react to that men's victory. I mean, it's just been all-out dominance for Cambridge men, hasn't it, Julia?
Oh my God, yeah. I think Cambridge, like, if their reserve boat is like stacked with such great athletes, so I just like can't imagine the greatness in the first 8, especially the cox. He's like fantastic from what I've heard.
3 cheers for the cox here, of course. Was there a crucial moment in this race, Julia, that you think gave Cambridge the advantage? They were strokes ahead, weren't they? By the end, it was a clear win.
I think it really kind of starts with the first stroke. It's like the confidence and calmness, because from what I understand, behind the curtains is like they're really confident and calm, so they know what they're happening ahead of them. And when they kind of get a little bit of advantage at the start, it's all kind of decided since then.
So they start being absolutely crucial. Well, Julia, thank you. Jane, all I can say is the races might be done, but the crowds are not. The drink continues to flow. Everyone's out here enjoying a bit of sunshine. It's very fine. Everyone's enjoying themselves here, and I think it's going to continue for quite a while this afternoon. We might even join them later. Who knows?
Kate, do we know who won that 100-metre dash and won the bottle of champagne? That was preying on my mind.
It's still going. It's still going next to me at the Oriel Kensington Rowing Club. I think they've taken a break in proceedings for all the crowds.
Yes, thanks, Kate. We're going to cross now quickly to the finish line in Mortlake, where Tom Noonan has a man who is celebrating, and rightly so.
Absolutely. I'm here with Noam Muele, the Cambridge president, 2-seat in the Victoria's Cambridge boat. Noam, how does it feel to win your 4th boat race?
I think it's hard to realise at the moment. It will take a bit of time. The goal for today was to get the job done, which we did, and now we're going to have time to take a step back well, I'll have time to take a step back and reflect on that, I guess.
Does it feel like routine now?
Not really, especially on a day like today. This is the hardest race I've done by far. It definitely didn't feel like routine. We all had to stay super focused during the whole track to make sure we make no mistake. And water, conditions like that don't happen often, so no, definitely no routine here.
You were obviously racing Oxford, but at times it felt like you were battling the river as well. Was that what made it so hard?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say the first half of the race was really racing the other crew, but the second half was, making sure we make zero mistake, battling the river, as you're saying. It was super hard, super challenging, but everyone in the boat did a really good job. So yeah, that's amazing.
You've been one of the dominant crews all season, across the world, frankly, in the university categories. There's talk you might now go on to Henley to challenge for the Grand there. What can this crew do going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to take some time off, a few days, and then it's back to training with the goal of winning Henley, absolutely. So it might be in this 8, it might be in another crew, but the goal for us is going to be to win not one, but several Henley events.
And Noam, finally, you're the president. What will you be saying to your men now?
Honestly, it's just, I guess, saying thank you to the staff, the coaches, the athletes. What we do is super hard. The training is really hard, and the guys do it day in, day out, with no guarantee of being in any crew at the end of the season. It's just thank you for your commitment. Congratulations for making it to the end of the season. Thank you for being a group of inspiring young men. Yeah.
Noam Mwele, congratulations. Enjoy the celebrations.
Thank you very much.
There you go, Noam Mwele, the Cambridge president, the winning president, 4-time boat race winner. Some people dream of doing this just once. He's still hungry for more, it seems.
Thank you so much, Tom. We should also point out Noam has won his 4th boat race. He's also studying for a PhD in physics. What an underachiever. John in the WhatsApp says, FYI, this is in response to what Ed and I were just discussing before we spoke to Tom. Many local rowing clubs provide rowing opportunities to state school kids. At Maidenhead, we've got 85 juniors who compete successfully against private schools. Regards from John Sees, chair of Maidenhead Rowing Club. Well, thank you for that, John. Now, Michael Waydock, Charlie Elvers, 2 of 3 of our brilliant commentary team this afternoon. Thank you so much for being here and bringing it to life for us, painting a picture as these 4 teams battled it out on the river. How do you both feel? What happens now for our rowers?
It's interesting because there's whether you win or lose, there's a lot of adrenaline pumping through your system. And so although you've done an 18-minute race and you've exerted yourself maximally, you've redlined yourself all the way down the course, there is definitely a bit of adrenaline still there, which sort of gets you through the next hour or 2. But all the rowers will be attending their sort of relevant dinners afterwards. It's a big, you sit down, you have a big dinner, speeches, and then it sort of descends into a bit of a party afterwards. So they'll be going back, and obviously the Cambridge crew will be much happier. They'll be celebrating. The Oxford crew will probably be in more of a somber mood when they go back to the hotel and sort of get ready for the night. But there'll definitely be a bit of a crash at some point from both sides, I think.
Yeah, and what happens after this? I mean, it's the Easter holidays, people will be going back to university. What happens next? I mean, are there people in the boat who will be then gearing up for other races, for, possibly World Championships, possibly 2028 Olympics?
I think so. In times gone by, this has kind of been the only thing that the Oxford-Cambridge boat clubs have done. Now we're starting to see a bit more emphasis on races later on in the season, the traditional UK summer regatta season where they go and race Marlow Regatta, Metropolitan Regatta, Henley, and that really provides a sort of extension to the season, because it is a very short season from October to April, which seems like a bit of a shame to waste it almost. So there'll definitely be a bit of racing that goes on, and then there'll also be a few members of the crew who will go off to GB trials in a few weeks, and they'll try out for the national team.
But first, a bit of a lie down. Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for your incredible commentary this afternoon. How did this afternoon compare to other rowing events and races that you've commentated on?
Oh, it was just unique. Totally and utterly unique, and thank you to Imogen and Charlie as well for bringing their insights to it. I mean, We had, I think, 4 boat race victories between the three of us. Imogen with 3 of them. I think we should probably say that. That's why she's so in demand and had to disappear from where we are now. A couple of Olympic gold medals as well. So we knew that with Charlie and Imogen, we had all the rowing know-how. But I think the way that they broke that race down, both of those races down, they spotted the key moves as well. And certainly in that women's race where there was a couple of really big tactical moves as Cambridge were trying to overhaul the Oxford crew. Absolutely fantastic. They will have their dinners, of course, and the adrenaline pumping through their veins. I've got the adrenaline pumping through mine, so I'm off to find a Bernie Inn.
I was going to say, we'll get you some crisps and a pint in a pub, Michael.
That'll be about as much as we can afford.
Michael, the bookies got it completely wrong in both races. What do you put that down to?
Well, I think we probably called it at the start that we felt that Oxford's women were going to probably win, and I think we felt that Cambridge's men were probably the superior crew. So maybe just listen to Times Radio. I mean, we're doing it again next year, aren't we? So I think it went as we predicted, really, didn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely, and it's been a spectacular afternoon. How did it compare to your boat race in 2022?
I think compared to our race, the actual margins and how the races played out was very similar. There was obviously a bit of clashing at the start of the Oxford race, which obviously you can't see, but hopefully was sort of got across on the commentary. But other than that, it was... What you're
going to say is you had an even better time commentating for Times Radio, and you'd love to come back and do it again.
I would love to come back.
There you go. There you go. Thank you both so much, and thank you to Imogen, who has dashed off to do another important job. That's it from us here, Riverside. Thank you so much for your company this afternoon. Thank you to Michael. Thank you to Charlie. Thank you so much to our production team. There's far too many of them who worked so hard on the show for me to be able to name them all, but you are very, very much appreciated. There'll be more from the boat race reactions on Aisha Hazarika's show this afternoon. I will be back with you next Saturday on Dry Land. Ryan Tubridy is here tomorrow at this time, also on Dry Land. Up next, it is Aisha Hazarika. Thank you so much from Putney Riverside this afternoon. This has been the Oxford Cambridge Boat Race 2026.
On DAB, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio, official radio partner of the boat race.
Thanks, Jane. Welcome to Times Radio. It's just gone 4 o'clock. You're listening to Aisha Hazarika on Weekend Drive. We're with you until 7 o'clock this evening. Coming up on the show, the race is on to find an American pilot shot down over Iran. A former US Air Force Brigadier General will tell us what pilots are trained to do in these situations. Plus, how did the Met Police come to leave a bag of guns lying outside the house of the London Mayor to be found by a member of the public? And we'll lighten the mood with my comedy panel after